Welcome to Hi Bob, the officially unofficial podcast for All Mankind on Apple TV Plus. I'm Jim.
I'm A.Ron.
And today we're talking Season 4, Episode 10. It's the finale. A.Ron, I'm no thoughts head empty on last episode because I watched it when I was still a little bit sicker than I am now. I've still got a cough and stuff, but doing much better. Excited to talk about the finale. What'd you think?
Damn, I was going to follow up with what did you think of last week's episode? But you cut me off, cut me off at the knees.
Yeah, I here's my thought about last week's episode. I really enjoyed watching it just as somebody who can watch an episode of television without having to worry what am I going to say about it. So I have nothing to say about it. Zero, nada.
Okay.
I do have stuff to say about this episode.
I want to answer your question about an overall comment about the season, which is I liked where this season ended up. I am excited about the prospects of next season, theoretically. However, I'm going to need the showrunners and the writers to really tighten things up next season. If I'm going to get excited about an Aleda, Miles, Sam, Will, who else we got? Margo, maybe.
Her, but yep.
If I'm gonna Kelly, if I'm gonna get excited about a For All Mankind centered around this new cast, they've got to get those details right, because I found myself wanting to get engaged with a lot of the plot. I thought the Margo stuff paid off very well. I was genuinely moved by Danny. I'm so relieved that good Danny did not meet the bad Danny fate. But it's all because of the love and affection I have for these characters and the fact I've been through this long multi-decade journey with them. But I constantly found my attempts to engage with what I thought was a really interesting point about kind of revolutions and labor movements and how they're viewed and how progress is made when, you have like decades of kind of gridlock and stagnation, and like when do you get bursts of progress, and does progress for some mean progress for every. I found those my attempts to engage with those plots were continually undermined by just half-baked storytelling. And that's something I've been concerned with all season, and I feel like I was confident. Honestly, you heard me last week. I was really confident that they would. It's like, well, you know what? Sometimes every square in the quilt isn't the best, and it's got some loose stitching here and there. But at the end of the day, when you look at the quilt, you're like, I see where they're going. That's a nice looking quilt. Unfortunately, I feel like not all the stitching got there, and the end of the analysis, and it's just I think this is a clear step down in previous seasons' quality, not from the acting, not from the special effects standpoint, but just from the nuts and bolts storytelling. They're just a lot of leaps and a lot of connections that I wasn't following. But like I said, I still, this show affects me more than most others. The amount of bawling I did, especially the first time I went through the whole, Danielle returned to Earth, and it just kept on getting worse and worse, or better. Like, my heart got fuller and fuller, and the tears, it just wrung them out of me. So, I gotta love a show that makes me care that much about the characters, but I also looking forward to multiple seasons of these characters being dead and gone, and then what? So that's how I feel about For All Mankind. I love Kusanet's station. I love how we ended things. I thought there's some really interesting and valid questions and observations made, but woof, some of that stuff. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked all season about the less than stellar way that things have come together. And I think it was no different. It was true all the way up till the very end of this thing. I can point to things even in this final episode that just don't quite connect the way they want me to. That said, I think there are some very exciting moments in this episode. And the thing that they're doing, which is kind of the main thrust of it, which is basically like what Margo's saying at the end, is humanity's messy. There's no clear line from here to there. There's no clear line to justice. All of these things, the decisions we make are murky. And that's both, a huge weakness, but it's also the thing that makes us us, and it's a strength in some regard. And I think that was something that they ended up getting to that really felt like they had made their point. Because in the moments where I'm getting excited and I'm looking for the heroes and who to root for, and I'm like, yes, go, grab your wrenches and go beat the shit out of these people who have unjustly imprisoned you and tortured you and shit like that. I feel myself rooting for those people, and then I'm like, yeah, but also there's this asteroid out there that's going to help billions of people on Earth, and they're trying to subvert the something that could help all those people. So I found myself getting very caught up emotionally, but also intellectually I was being pulled in multiple directions. And I think that's probably the best thing I could say about this season is they nailed that. And they didn't always do it perfectly, right? There are a lot of, like you said, leaps in storytelling and just like things that you have to just go with in order to get to that place. But I do think they managed to get to that place. Maybe they needed another episode's worth of runtime to really flesh out the finer details of that stuff. It would have made me happier. But I did enjoy this season. I think it's, and I don't know if we come back and do a recap or a wrap up for this season, maybe we can talk more about it. But I think ultimately this is pretty obviously and easily the weakest of the For All Mankind seasons. And that's fine. Every show's going to have one. Right before this,
yes,
there was still a weakest season. And it's not to say it was a terrible season. It's just to say it's now the weakest season of For All Mankind.
And it's unfortunate the timing because we are probably going to lose all of the... I mean, we might have Danny. We might have Margo wasting away in prison. But, like, the original cast we kind of fall in love with, they're gone. And...
Yeah.
We don't really, unfortunately, I think Miles and Sam, I think it's an obvious decline of the show that we didn't meet Sam and Miles last season.
Yeah.
One of my big bones of why is Sam so fucking gung ho? She's going to throw herself into an ion nozzle and get fried to steal this asteroid. What makes her tick? Same way we saw Aleda and what shaped her as a little girl into the person that she is now. I would have loved to seen Sam busting her ass in high school. Her dream is to be an astronaut. The great. She's studying Molly. She's studying Ed. The big wrist, the big swing. Make that it's in her bones. She's just burning. And her frustration with getting to Mars and the reality of what the space program is now, but she just parachutes into the narrative to be kind of whatever the show needs her to be. Do you need her to make the connections to her black market? She can do that. Do you need her to find a Martian rock? She can do that. Do you need her to lead a labor revolt? She can do that. Do you need her to Deus Ex Machina your asteroid heist? She can do that too. And I do think I don't know if they needed another episode. I think they needed certainly more time in the writer's room, and I don't know if there was there's rumblings about a strike. We got to get this thing done and shot so that I don't know, but or maybe it's just that we've gone from doing actual NASA missions that might have been scrapped because of the Cold War to we're just inventing things out of whole cloth. We're just in science fiction town. But a lot of this episode very much reminds me of Star Trek logic, where it's of course there's a external manual cutoff for the engines that has a PCI bus slot that you can just slide in your rogue communications device, and it's just automatically going to power, and it's all built to work that way. And you got this big labeled lever that's got to be. It's like this is them trying to disconnect the deflector dish in First Contact. It's that kind of I don't give a shit because that's the Starship Enterprise and. Who gives it? But I'm just not there. I'm not at Star Trek with the technobabble and solutions of the week of the show. So it's that stuff feels a little weak to me. So
yeah,
Yeah, it's like I said, it's like I don't think this is a bad season two. I'd say this is like a C minus, maybe at the very worst. But it is unfortunate that they're asking us to swallow this much on the season where they're giving us so little to look forward to next season. It's in terms of like, what are the big character plots going forward?
Yeah, no, we'll see. I feel like they did Dev some service this year. I found myself thinking that he is not the nefarious billionaire that I assumed he was by the end of this season, and that is a good place for him to pick up next time, because clearly we're going to pick up with him next time. If you've got a guy leading Mars, I don't want to feel like he's completely untrustworthy going into that phase of life for Mars. So they did a pretty good job with him. I'm very excited to see where he goes. And I guess, yeah, Aleda is still with us. I'm excited to see where she goes. But yeah, there's not a lot of the remaining cast to look forward to for next year.
It's like, yeah, you talk about like going from season 1 to season 2, and you're like deeply involved in like Ed and Karen and Gordo and Stacy or Tracy and Ellen and Danny and their, some cases their husbands and their brothers and their wives, and like the cupboard's pretty bare from a character standpoint. And the ones that like, like I said, Miles and Sam, like I haven't been given a huge reason to care about them. Although I did think the guy who plays Miles did some good work. I like really liked the tension of like the intelligence goons working him over and him breaking. I thought that was like I wasn't expecting him to do that kind of that good of work. But yeah, it's inherently still an interesting premise. I just they need to get the geopolitics and the science a little tighter, I think, for me to really engage with this.
And the plot beats too. I there's a couple of things that happened in this episode that I want to talk about in a little more detail that surprised me, let's say.
Same. Do you think it's time to get there, or do we?
I do, yeah.
All right.
All right, we start off with a flashback. 2 months ago, there's a worker on Mars out in a rover. He finds the gun that's been buried there and stashes it in his locker. This guy's name is Tuttle. They made a point to subtitle the text on this gun, "Protect the leader at all costs." Did we know what that said before? I don't remember knowing that, but why make a point to tell us what it says right now?
I thought it was going to have some kind of plot implications, like that this is going to be like some kind of last stand protection of like Danny or Ed or something, but it didn't really.
Is it an irony thing? Like protect the leader at all costs, just shoots Danielle,
That might be.
Yeah.
Or also it's like it's a signpost for like Lee's character development. Like that's all like, he went from like a completely brainwashed, North Korean soldier / cosmonaut that's ready to go down to like someone who's ready to defy his party, his country. Maybe, I don't know. Do you because like here's the thing, like we watch these, we're recording this in advance, we got screeners. Usually I have a good idea of what the public thinks about different things. This is just you and me. Like I talked a little bit over with Pete last night, so I believe that only Lee, Danielle, and Kuz knew of this gun.
Yeah, with you.
Do you find it plausible that all three of those would just leave that gun out there and never, like, when Danielle's talking about like the non-lethal rounds and plastic bullets and what all the measures they got, that nobody would think to go out and get that gun? Or just for security purposes? Do you think it's like, I know it's out there by the North Korean prison complex and maybe there's not a good reason to go out there, but it just seems like an awfully big what if floating around,
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what is one gun gonna do, right? I don't think they have any ammunition for this thing, so there's like a bullet.
I bet there's a full clip.
Okay.
full
Let's say there's
magazine.
even a full clip. What good is a full clip and a gun on Mars if you have a riot of 100, 150, 200? I don't know how many workers there are, but a lot of workers. Like, what good is one clip gonna do you?
Not very, but it could definitely swing. It could definitely be used, I think. Because who's the first one's going to take the bullet? Like, let's say that thing. It's a
Sure.
small gun. Let's say it's got 6 shots, 7.
It's a tiny gun.
Who's going to be the 3 guys going to take the bullet? Who's going to care that much about this labor movement? But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's it's one of those things where it's like, you'd think that one of them would have gone out there to secure it or destroy it, or they would have pulled the pin out of it.
Yeah, that's the big question to me is why market? Why market? If you don't ever want this to come back, why market?
That's the thing. It's like it feels like something that like the 3 nations, the people representing the 3 nations had like a mini UN, and they just decided right then and there, like, this is a secret we're going to bury. But I wonder if it's Lee insisted that at least we mark it in case we need it for. I honestly haven't a clue, but I just want to see how plausible you thought it was that like it would just be out here and nobody had gone back and gotten it, secured it. Like,
well, over the course of the episode, I'm looking at Danielle's actions, and the way she is, what she's sanctioning, what she's approving, what she's allowing to happen under her command. And I'm trying to gauge how much she knows about this, because clearly, like, the stuff that's going on with Bishop in this episode, with the torture of Miles, she knows that Bishop is questioning Miles. I don't think she knows that Bishop is torturing Miles.
Agreed.
Based on how she reacts when she sees him get a little handsy with him. And so in my mind, like, she would never leap to, we need to go get a gun. Because violence is not a solution that she is prepared to even consider, right?
Yeah.
Even though she's ordering lockdowns, which, what do you do with somebody who doesn't want to go into lockdown? You physically, violently force them into their quarters. She has to know that there's going to be some measure of violence against people who are otherwise uncooperative. But I don't think she would ever leap to, we need a tool that could murder someone.
Yeah.
So I find it pretty plausible that she was not considering it.
So that's the least of the other concern I have is they've explicitly made it clear that they are tossing and searching and going through police state style these people's quarters constantly, and have been for ever since the labor movement started agitating. How has no one found this gun in these giant base sweeps?
Right. I don't know. I get the feeling that they're not as thorough as it seems. They're more concerned with like intimidation, because otherwise, you would find this gun, right?
Yeah.
If you're actually thoroughly searching.
Anyway, that's one thing I was the first thing I was like, okay. But obviously, this is, as soon as they open with this, you're supposed to think, this is Chekhov's gun.
Yeah,
it is going to go off, and the final and it does, and it's pretty memorable.
Yeah, I mean, Chekhov was up on stage pointing to the gun last season. I mean,
true.
It's the irony doesn't just stop at like the irony is deep. It's Danielle starts with this gun pointed at her, right? Or is it Kuz? I can't remember which one actually has the gun pointed at them, but
kind of both.
They both do, yeah. I mean, Lee is menacing both of them with this weapon, and that
You're right. Lee couldn't stop a 2-person riot with a gun. How are you going to stop 200?
Right? On the surface of Mars, where all you'd have to do is nick one of their suits.
Right. Yeah, Kuz took 3 seconds, like, let's just rush this guy. Yeah, one of us take a bullet, maybe.
Yeah. So I don't know. I did find it pretty deliciously ironic that this would come back and eventually shoot Danielle. All right, the asteroid, let's go back to real time here. The asteroid is 2 hours from the burn window, as we see Dev monitoring things in Happy Valley and communicating with his team in the lower decks, who are, I think, the ones actually keeping this mission on track. Are they just mirroring the orders that that Danielle's team is giving and sending those communications to Ranger to make it look like they're still in control?
I think that's what Ed makes explicit when he like reminds the person, hey, you got to relay that last telemetry reading, or, you know, it's like.
What if an order comes in and Dev's like in the bathroom or something? I mean,
that's
yeah, there's a lot riding on Dev here in his Morse code box.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that they have enough stuff into the, you know, the central whatever, that they don't need Dev. Like, Dev is more of like, because they'll see the commands coming in and going, and it's more of like, you know, it's just another eyes and ears on things they can't see, because they don't have the North Korean system anymore,
right?
Apparently.
But this is a super cool series of shots. This whole thing where we fly by the asteroid, we fly by Ranger, we fly through Happy Valley Station, deck to deck here, until we get down to where Ed is and his team.
Reminds me of that scene where they show the James Webb analog, you know, and you go through the system, seeing the sensors tracking, and then it goes to Earth, and it's like they're very go for broke on that kind of like you know, kind of structural analysis.
Yeah, I love it. It's not flashy in. I mean, there are a ton of effects happening here, but the effects aren't like big explosions and lights and shit. It's really just, here's a cool piece of machinery. Let's go into detail on that. I as a tech nerd, I really love this stuff.
I do love that stuff. Did you think it was weird that, like, you know, Massey's up there just kind of chilling by the discriminator, acting maximum shady, and they've got now, like, Palmer's just mean mugging her, like, yeah, I got my eye on you the whole time. It's like, where were you last episode when she's squirting? I know you can't watch them all the time, but I just thought it was weird that a month in, maybe 6 weeks into this project, that, like, he's still, like, completely. It's like, well, if you were this suspicious of her, why did you let her fetch the discriminator? Why? It's like, I just felt like it's dumb. It's like they should have told the story of everyone has become complacent and trusting, and it'll be a huge shock, rather than like, I knew she would inevitably betray us at the end. But
yeah,
again, I felt like it's just a little half-baked, little loosey-goosey.
I feel like Massey volunteering, Sam volunteering to go get this discriminator is kind of suspicious. Switch out these discriminators beforehand, then do the water thing, and then let somebody else go grab the discriminator. Because then you're like, I didn't.
Yeah,
I was here the entire time. What blame could I possibly have?
You're the invisible hand guiding the mission. Yeah,
especially
like
with
I
her
said,
bag.
I feel
with
like
the other one is just sitting right there next to it. When she put that bag down, she could have swapped the discriminators then.
They just need a little bit more in the design phase of this season. There's a couple of unfortunate engineering flaws and kerfuffles, and some backflow and certain regulators. It just, yeah.
So last week when I wasn't here, Lee choked a guy out, one of his fellow North Koreans, the guy who discovered their base down there, their secret ops.
Me and B had a big debate about whether he was dead or not. Before you saw this episode, what was your thoughts on Commander Cho, dead or alive?
I assumed he was not dead because he didn't choke him long enough, but it's also TV, so like a quick choke and they don't wake up
That's
immediately.
What I was like.
Could mean death, I guess.
I was waiting for the snapping celery sound. Like, if you hear that, that's for sure he's dead. But absent that, no. Yeah. But you're right, it's Hollywood. Like, 10-second choke, they're done. They're done, you know?
Right. So yeah, that guy's not waking up, and Lee's very concerned and decides to take him to the med bay for treatment. Over the protests of some of the people here, Gerardo was like, "Look, man, he's seen my face. He knows we're down here. What happens when he wakes up?" And Ed's just like, Simi or whatever his name is, he'll be cool. He's been cool before.
Yeah, they're definitely they're definitely relying a lot this season for the Russian flight surgeon to just look the other way at every opportunity he has.
Which is kind of
another
cool.
Loader accident, huh?
I sort of like it. I like that the doc is like, look, it's none of my business. I'm just patching people up.
He's just he's just Switzerland. He's just remaining neutral, you know? Yeah, you're all meat to me. I'm just stitching you up and bleeding you and whatever needs to be done.
Love it. So Miles is being tortured. He's not giving up any information, though. So they turn up the heat, or rather the CO2. And he pukes on their shoes and tells them that he just wants to see his family. How can he tell you what he knows if he can't breathe? I always have a problem with these torture methods that keep people from breathing or talking or whatever.
This is just a patently ridiculous torture method.
I have no idea.
NASA does not supply carbon dioxide to any of their spacecraft or space stations. Do you know why?
Because it's poisonous?
Because there's only 0.04, even in today's
Can we make it?
2024 greenhouse paradise that we live in, we have 0.04% CO2 saturation in the atmosphere. And we make it. We make it. In fact, what NASA does is they scrub the CO2. They make oxygen and they scrub the CO2 because you got to remove it from the air. That's the trick. The problem is they want like to replicate. There's a scene in like a Tom Clancy book where one of the protagonists interrogates a person by throwing him in a hyperbaric chamber and like pressurizing them. And then once they get nitrogen narcosis, they give them the bins and then they repressurize and get. They want something like that. But like a carbon dioxide saturation in the room, it's like, okay, you're going to get progressively and slowly sick over the next 6 to 8 hours. They can't do that. And if the realistic thing to do is have these guys take a plastic bag and wrap around Miles' head.
Sure.
That would
Make
be
his
how
own
you
CO2
interrogate someone this way.
chamber.
But instead, they strap on oxygen mask and adjust the CO2 levels. Like there's CO2 just ready to be. It's like I don't know. It's just the more I thought about it, the more dumb I thought it was. But
Sure.
yeah,
I
will
see pumping
say
out the atmosphere like that might work. Although it would be really difficult, I imagine, to pump out the atmosphere in a base like this because I would imagine a lot of it is connected.
Yeah. Although I imagine it is probably pretty easy to isolate rooms, though. It'd have to be like if one of them gets so maybe they could do that, but they wanted to do this CO2 sickness thing. So if I put about like if I take the practicalities out of it, okay, fine. I was surprised that Miles stood this tall. I was impressed by how much interrogation he stood up to last. He is a fucking rock, man. I did not see this side of Miles.
But there were a couple of telltale signs here. I immediately knew where they were going with this as soon as he mentioned family and Bishop got a look on his face. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see where they're going.
Yeah, for sure.
Much like last episode, I immediately knew based on the music cue that Sergey was going to die because you don't do like a half sinister musical cue and show a guy walking to his hotel room who's obviously going to be trailed by Russian agents. Yeah, it was pretty obvious. This was pretty obvious too. But I mean, this is good storytelling. This is the one thing that could get to Miles.
Yeah.
I felt like they have told the story. I mean, he's up here because of his family. There's no other reason that he would be up here. So, yeah, it made total sense.
Agreed. But how cool would it have been if they had casted this guy and his wife last season and, they were like young, happy couple. He's making money with the oil. He could have been a big part of the energy, like instead of it just being a faceless, a bunch of Americans bitching and moaning about it. Like, and season 1, 2, and 3 For All Mankind did that. But here he just parachutes in and they have to do all this.
If he was in the group with Jimmy, or not, it might be a little bit too small world. If he was actually in that group with Jimmy and then like, how does he stay out of prison, that kind of thing. But like, yeah, around the edges of that, totally.
Yeah, but Elena wasn't even like her dad was like in the beginning. She wasn't connected. She just they're over Mexico trying to get to America for a better life after her mom dies. Her dad becomes the janitor there, but like it wasn't connected. And I think they could have done that. Like we'd have been like, who the hell is this guy and why do we care about his wife? But it's like, oh, it's an interesting showing like the real working class Americans who are suffering because of all this progress, right? Progress isn't. But like they just didn't do that. And I'm actually shocked at how far they were able to come with Miles. Unfortunately, Sam is like a mile or two behind in terms of character development. It really just feels like she is the facilitator of the plot. But yeah, I'm with you.
That would have been cool. Not what we got though. Let's go over to Margo. She wakes up in her office with an invitation from Eli, and she's escorted to his office where she finds both Eli and also Irina awaiting her. Arena says she didn't want to miss the culmination of their efforts and that they'll be headed back to Star City together as soon as the asteroid is on its way to Earth.
The Bullfinch played it pretty cool, I gotta say. You know, she was not gloat. Cool. You know, there's a little subtle menacing gloat, but nothing that Margo would have picked up on unless she knew about Sergey. So
sure.
And the Bullfinch gets her comeuppance at the end of this episode. So,
oh yeah,
I'll forgive her being smug this scene.
Yeah, I like this big surprise with Margo. I mean, Margo's sort of adjusting. Margo's feeling like she's American, right? All these scenes of her eating hamburgers, all of this stuff is making her feel at home here.
Sleeping in her old office again, yeah.
Right? And then to have Arena just parachute into what is becoming normal life again just blows that all up. When she walks in this room, she's just smacked in the face by, oh, yeah, I'm still a Russian prisoner.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really like that. They did a good job in this scene. So Margo goes over to Mission Control and tells Aleda that Arena is here. And Aleda says Sergey hasn't been returning her messages, so Margo asks her to please go to him and tell him that it's not safe here anymore. And she agrees to do that. Which, can I just say how buck wild it is that Aleda would be leaving her post again?
2 hours to go.
2 hours.
2 hours to burn time.
A $10 trillion mission kicks off. I know they're not paying $10 trillion, but it's worth $10 trillion.
She's like, I gotta leave the floor. What? She's like, I gotta take a big messy shit. What? Well, you know what happened to Bill Henderson?
Yep.
You know,
you don't have the diapers in the back. Strap one on, Aleda.
No, I thought the same thing. Like 2 hours. Also, why is he in danger? Like, if the Russians knew about him, like it's not the Bullfinch is going to come here with a fucking hypodermic needle or a 22 caliber bullet.
An umbrella with rice on the tip. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She's got to give him a polonium milkshake or some shit. Yeah. With the wash down his Big Mac. I was side eyeing. I think the things got better as we go, but I was side eyeing a lot of this stuff in the beginning.
Yeah, she's gonna get a reputation. I mean, the last time she walked out, it was mid mission, and people were screaming and dying. But so I guess this is a step up. I don't know. If you got to leave during a mission, leave before it.
And it's also like I think they're really blurring the lines between her being a NASA employee and Helios. She's a Helios employee. It's not clear to me at all why.
Oh, true.
Although I guess this is a joint Helios M7. They had the Roscosmos station, so of course. But like she's hand entering code. I don't know. I felt like they're a little bit trying to have it both ways there, but I don't know.
Yep, with you. All right, the CIA goon. Bishop tells Danielle that Miles isn't cracking. She orders him to continue working on it and also orders a lockdown and another security sweep. Which at this point I'm starting to think, is Danielle okay? Is she cool with what's going on with Miles here? Does she know? Because she was acting like she knew and was totally cool with it.
It a little bit stains her halo, tarnishes her halo that she gets this KGB and CIA goon on a literal Jack Bauer ticking time bomb type solution and thinks that they're just going to be like good cop, bad copping him, you know, and the bad cop is just yelling really loud and threatening. Like, I do think, because when she says, obviously, we'll keep on questioning him, she's thinking like, yeah, keep interrogating him, you know, try to do carrot stick, whatever. She's not thinking you're torturing someone.
Yeah,
you're essentially waterboarding them with CO2. But she should have known better.
Yeah, probably.
And it's too bad. That's too bad. But you know what? She didn't want this job. She wanted to be back home with her grandbaby. She wanted to be watching Star Trek. So did I by the end of this episode. I'm with you, Danielle. Let's fire up Strange New Worlds. Forget about all this.
So the Goon Squad goes into action here. They continue the sweep of the base, violently forcing people into their quarters. One of them finds the gun in the locker, but rather than reporting it, he just sticks it in his boot or his pocket or whatever. This is wild. This is the second time somebody has just pocketed this gun. I can maybe understand
the first
a
time I
worker,
watched
but
this
guy?
I got confused. I thought this was Tuttle, that he saw that things were breaking bad. And he's like, I want to get this gun. I want to have it on me. But no, Tuttle gets arrested. And this is one of the ex-military goons that's been deputized into Goon Squad. And he's just like, shit might hit the fan. I'm gonna keep this gun.
Yeah, rubber bullets.
I guess. I kind of wish they just made it Tuttle. The Tuttle was just like, he's like, man, shit's going wild. I'm a civilian. I don't know what to do. I felt weird for this guy to be like on his hands and knees crying and getting his gun, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's part of that messy, like, people making decisions that seem foolish or irrational or weird.
But again, a better season would have had, because they talk about these all are ex-military types. You could have seen like this, that most of them are pretty professional, and hey, we didn't get hired to do this, but I guess this is the job that has to be done. And this is the guy who's like the big bragger. He's the one that maybe takes things a little too far when he's hassling employees, and like give him something, because otherwise it just, I don't know. Like, why did this guy break? Why did he have such a complete failure of discipline? And why did he steal the gun in the first place? You're like the law enforcement. I don't know. It's a little bit, we own this city here, but they didn't. But it's literally the 11th hour storytelling.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in this episode for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So then Aleda goes to Sergey's motel, and she finds out that he supposedly shot himself, which we know better. This
standout scene for Aleda's. I can't remember her the actor's name, but her losing her shit in silence and just screaming "fuck, fuck, fuck" when this nice man from Yugoslavia shoots himself in the mouth. It's her and Rin Schmidt both like have standout performances in this episode of just spontaneous grief and outrage.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going through her head. I mean, obviously, like there's a level of, oh, this is bigger than we thought it was. We've been found out, and like there's a whole lot of reasons to be worried and concerned for both yourself and the space program and everything.
Yeah, 100%.
Is the thing going through her head though, I allowed Margo to Margo me, because like she is so I mean, look at where Margo was with Sergey last season. At this point, she was being blackmailed by the Russians to continue giving up secrets. This season, Aleda has judged her thoroughly for that and said, I can never forgive you for these things. And now she herself is doing the exact same thing. She's allowed Margo to put her in that position. And this is where, like, I feel like this is the moment where that all comes flooding in and she realizes it.
Like, the jig is up. Oh my God, is Margo going to die? Oh my God, am I going to go to Leavenworth? Like, what's going to happen to my kids? What's my husband going to say? Yeah, I could lose everything. And also the sadness of like I was just
trying to help a friend, right? And I can't tell if this is her realizing how easy it was for Margo to fall into this trap, because she now has fallen into it just by trying to help a friend out. Like,
I think there's a little difference, because Margo always had this kind of great man type philosophy, because it's like if you read between the lines in the last episode, I know you were like fevered and COVID ridden, but there's this throwaway line where she makes it clear that the reason she gave Sergey the fusion reactor plans was so the Russians wouldn't fall so far behind that the United States would just declare the space race over and shit can Mars. It wasn't like I mean, it's humanitarian and kind of like, well, I don't want the space race to end, but she has been pulling the strings for decades to keep, like, this wasn't just like, oh, the Russians beat us to the moon. So it's been also Margo sandbagging the U.S. space program and giving a little bit of information just to keep it the race competitive. So she's been, and I love, we saw this at the very beginning of the season. We talked about this, how there's so many clear parallels between her and Werner von Braun, that he made the sacrifices by looking the other way during the Nazi thing. Margo comparatively a lot less war crimey, But still, this is a single person deciding how humans should spend their resources and manipulating it to make it so. Because, I mean, I believe that this space is worth funding to explore, but I'm sharing this planet with like 8 billion other people, and like they get a say too. And the people in sub-Saharan Africa is like, gee whiz, we'd like rather have desalination plants and some clean drinking water. How can I tell them, well, you guys get fucked because we're making this long 50 to 100-year play for human history to explore space? It may or may not pay off. And I don't know. But yeah, Margo, I don't think she got into her situation just to help a friend.
Sure.
She was but Aleda certainly is in that position. And she is just as effectively trapped, regardless of the motivations.
And now she's swinging into the Margo territory, where she has to make a big call to keep the space program going, essentially.
Agreed.
By the end of this episode, and that scene is great. It's one of the better scenes in the episode, where they both come to kind of a realization of what needs to happen here, and then decide who's going to execute it and who's going to take the fall, and all of that stuff is very good. But yeah, I couldn't help but think, oh my god, she's been Margo'd in this situation. So Bishop threatens Miles' family, but promises to keep him safe if he just tells them what he wants to know. And Miles cracks, and he gives up the location of Ed and Dev's team.
I did think this guy playing Miles did a really good job, the way he played that breaking as being like something he almost wishes he could take back as soon as he did it.
But it's also so inevitable, right? Like there was nothing on this planet that was going to keep him from trying to save his family here.
Yeah, and it's a credible threat. I do wonder if he'd have stood tall, because like the other thing about this is like, how do you know they're not just going to fuck you anyway?
Yeah. I mean,
but like also it's like, you know, if the terrorists got the pistol to your wife, your child's head, and they're going to pull the trigger right now, you'll do anything to put the you know, put that off another day, because another day, who knows what might happen. As long as you're still alive, things are. However, with the nature of the time sensitive, like we were 2 hours at the beginning of this episode away. Did they just have this information on Mars? Did they just have this CCTV footage of her sneaking the moon rocks and stuff ready to go? Like, I wouldn't think so, because I'm like, how the hell would they have gotten all this stuff together in time to do this dog and pony in front of Miles? It didn't seem like they had enough time.
Yeah, Miles was a nobody. Miles was... I mean, why? Really, the CIA has had like this tap on Miles' family the entire. Do they do this with everybody who's on Mars? Do they keep tabs on everybody's family?
Because I thought the story was the Russians knew about the black market operation, probably because they were spying on Ilya, and when Miles took it over, they just observed that. But they didn't share that with the CIA. How would they? They didn't even know the CIA. I mean, I'm sure they knew that there's somebody there, but they didn't know who it is. And it seemed very clear that the American had no idea who Miles was. It was the Russian that knew. So, like, and if it's the Russians, how the hell did the Russians have his wife under surveillance at the Mars thing? Like, they might know about it.
Right.
But, like, it again, if this is the only thing wrong in the episode, probably wouldn't even noticed. But, like, at this point in the episode, I'm noticing all the shortcuts. And as much as because I wasn't as hip to you, I didn't notice the family connection right away. Or if I did, when we get the scene and they roll in the black bag with the Velcro and the clinking and clanking, and they're talking low, I'm like, oh, they're going to get, and that's what Miles clearly is thinking. Yeah. So when they pull out the tablet, it's like, oh. So it's cool. It's just like, again, unfortunately, one too many shortcut for me not to see what they're doing, and kind of like part of my brain is like, I don't know the whole time it's happening while I'm watching Miles like completely lose his shit and his whole future dissolves in real time. I'm still like, how would they have, and where did this footage come from? And
yeah, here's the other question. Is it really this hard to find Ed and Dev's team? Like, okay, we've swept the base 9 times, we found nothing. These are human beings. It's not like there are a lot of places to hide a human being. Like checking the bottom locker that's a 8x8 cube, there's not going to be a human being in there. Like, there are only so many places to go, and where have you not checked? Oh, the places that are under construction. Maybe we should go down there and check it. Like the idea that Daniel says,
no.
no one could get down there. We shut that down. We locked out the controls.
We put a lock on that elevator. No way.
Right?
No way would we have a rogue HVAC guy going around undoing our lockouts.
It's crazy that they have not checked down there.
I'll tell you another thing. It's crazy they didn't know immediately who was in on the thing because they just did a full curfew base. Like I watch guys knocking on and like making sure it's like, well, going into the crisis, Dev, Ed, like these are just like nobodies. You're not gonna miss Ed and Dev.
I mean, Dev. So Dev is mingling, right? Dev is among the command crew, so he would not be noticed. But
you're
Ed
right.
missing, Gerardo missing.
One of the ringleaders of the labor movement that just, was a terrorist cell and you're in, quote unquote terrorist cell in your mind. Yeah, I thought that was a lot of hooey too.
Yeah, but the idea that you wouldn't check these lower levels just because, we put an override, the lockout on the elevator is absurd.
Yeah, yeah. Again, this has been going on for a month, by the way.
Right. So Dev notices that Danielle and her team are mounting up to go storm the lower decks, and he warns Ed's team that they're coming. And when Danielle's team arrives, the ops comm is deserted, but Danielle sees what their plan was.
Yeah, and that's where, that's the everyone the principals on the show finally catch up to where the audience has been for a couple weeks. And I like how Marv is like, is that even physically possible? Can someone do that? Steal an asteroid? Like, that's what we've been talking about the last 3 weeks, Marv.
Yep.
Good you're catching up.
Yeah. And Will's brought in on this process. Arena is there in the office talking with him. Seems like everything is back on track. Seems like the plan to steal the asteroid from Mars is off. What are you going to do without ghost ops?
Yeah. And yeah, like, what can you do?
I do really like where Ed and his team end up hiding out. It makes total sense. Like all of the things that they've had kind of spinning in the background here, these plates, I do feel come together pretty nicely here at the end with like the North Koreans and their sort of sovereign state they've got going on here on Mars, and the willingness or unwillingness to violate that territory. It's all pretty good. And the alliances they've forged over the course of the last few episodes, I like it.
Yeah, there's a little fruits of the poisonous tree with I don't fundamentally buy Lee's storyline, but
Totally.
But
it's
again,
get worse from here.
That's what I was saying. It's a shoddy piece of quilt, but you could stitch it together to keep yourself warm for sure, and I think it worked at that level.
So Gerardo is found, and Bishop grabs him, slams him up against a bulkhead before Danielle calls him off. Danielle seems to be displeased with Bishop's methods here. I don't know what she thought. We kind of discussed this. I don't know what she thought was happening with Miles, but just talking, I guess. Because she's really like dismayed. She grabs him forcefully, pushes him against the bulkhead, and screams at him.
But she doesn't relieve him of his duties or confine him to quarters or reassign someone to. Not that I don't know the Bishop would take that instruction. Like once he was activated, as everything about Danny is like a little naive because once he was activated by the Department of Defense, he's probably like the CIA and the KGB are the guys calling the shots at this point.
Oh, but Danielle's like the commander of this base.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Al Gore told me I need to get this thing done, so he's the commander-in-chief.
And then we see Dev and Ed's team hiding out in the North Korean part of the base.
I love Lee Buffalo and his own men. They're like, what are these Westerners doing in here? And he's like, hey, Commander Cho in the sick bay, I'm the top dog, and you're going to like fall. So now like you can see the Korean soldiers are like doing the math. Like this seems like bullshit. But it's the exact kind of bullshit that if you stop without authorization, you might end up in like the North Korean gulag equivalent. So it's like, what are they going to do? Yeah, because it might be a wild psyop that they're all doing. Who knows?
No, that's where showing us things like Lee trying to say hi to Ed and it getting shut down hard really pays off, right?
Yeah.
At this point, I was thinking, this can't be it. This is so anticlimactic, right? To have them do this whole Ghost Ops thing, have Sam risk her neck up on Ranger, and for it to just fall apart in the end. There's no way this is the end of this plan. But I didn't see another avenue for getting where they needed to go.
And I felt like that's a problem because I do feel like the last 3 twists here just felt like them making up complications I couldn't possibly.
It's the override switch thing that kills me.
See or understand.
I think everything else for me tracked, right? The North Koreans might have secret
that was
comms
clever.
equipment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All that stuff worked for me. It's really just like you want to install an override between the ship and its engines. That seems wild to me. And then, the Lego-like nature of the pieces that just kind of sort of plug into it seemed also silly.
Like I would kind of, am I crazy to want to see Massey like twisting wires together?
No, that's what I expected to see. But
yeah, that this is not meant to pull a manual override and put a remote slave switch into it. Like what? And then the fact that there was an Uno reverse that NASA could play. It's like, well, there's a way to shut down a fusion reactor. Of course we wouldn't put that on the ship. The captain can't scram his reactor, but we can. All we got to do is do some high-speed coding to make it and, write all this fucking Fortran in 35 minutes and, like I said, I wonder if it wouldn't have been better if it was just an Ocean's 11 style heist with maybe one twist. But the fact that it kept on Uno reversing till the very end, But I mean, like I said, I wish there was like only a third of the things we're complaining about to complain about, because I think you would just be like, well, you're sounding like a nitpicker, But like, unfortunately, there's so many nits to pick.
Sure.
And I feel like that's the other thing, is I felt like the more I knew about any particular thing that they're trying to assert as like science fact or something, the more I'd call bullshit. If I was like an actual rocket person or an engineer or something, I would be really rolling my eyes. I'm just rolling the eyes at the stuff I kind of sort of know about,
Yeah, I want to go look at that code. Better look at it.
I wanted to go back. This is something I know we've commented about, but like Marv's reaction to finding out these guys are stealing the asteroid is like, don't they know what we're trying to do? Change the world. And they're trying to line their pockets. This is this is the former CEO of Chrysler?
I think so, yeah.
This is a multi-millionaire, 100-millionaire, if not a billionaire, talking about workers wanting to line their pockets. I mean, this is like, I know we got feedback of this last bit. I just like the absurdity of the fact that, like, if you guys had just made these workers all Godfather offers, it'd be a rounding error in the budget of this project, and you would have you would have enthusiastic support from the workers.
Yep, absolutely.
Like, it's so interesting how myopic. In fact, I thought this was an excellent simulator for like how you would feel as an American in 1775.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's a whole lot of patriots and a whole lot of founding fathers and a whole bunch of sniveling loyalists. And how you talk about I think it's like would let you know how you would feel about living in America or being in England when America succeed. Because like, this is what it is. This is a colony declaring their independence.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's he I don't feel like he's ever had a finger on the pulse of any of this stuff. And this is the thing. I keep seeing Marv getting more and more becoming more and more aware of the type of situation he's in here, and it weighing heavier and heavier on him. And I could just see him like physically slumping every single episode more and more.
Him and Danny are the same people, right? They're both people who kind of thought they were done and ready to go into the golden years, and they've been pressed back in service by politics because you're the only one that can help, and don't you want to serve, and are just getting kicked in the teeth for it. You know?
And he just, and maybe they're both like this, but he certainly doesn't seem like he has a grip on the situation. Like he is misjudged pretty much everybody top to bottom and their motivations across this entire season. And
even Danny, like, trying to appeal to like our shared home, And Ed
Yes.
and Lee and Dev have already gone like native Martian. They're like, fuck that. Like, we're not British people. We're Americans. Hello.
Yeah.
We're not
Danielle
Terrans. We're Martians
certainly,
now.
to a degree, has misjudged people too.
But like, I didn't even see that. Like, I think that's I think they did a poor job of Ed's character too, because I did not get this founding father thing. I thought this was a purely cynical, and I think I had a conversation with Pete last night where he kind of leaned into that. It's like, well, that's the point. Like, sometimes progress is made not because of the noblest intentions, but because of the basest selfish intentions. People have something, they want to protect it. They're tired of. I mean, that's a lot of founding fathers were like, black market profiteers that didn't want Britain coming in and building out official systems because they were lining their pockets from all this illicit trade. So it's like
they had all the ingredients of a really great Ed story here, and I feel like they didn't quite get there. Alex,
I don't know.
They have the perfect opportunity for him to do something selfish, but also loving for his own grandson. Like, yeah, Alex is up here on Mars, but what kind of future does he have up here on Mars? Is this going to be something where they shut down the program and he has to go back to Earth and live under worse conditions for himself? They could make that point, make him really care about his grandson and be doing this stuff for that reason. And that's a fairly selfish reason, and that's great because that still gets you where you want to be with the messy nature and the selfishness of some people's actions being good occasionally for the overall mass of humanity. But
yeah, it feels to me like they were still writing the last few episodes when they're shooting the first few, and they just decided to do a U-turn, or maybe that again they're really leaning on what Pete says, that sometimes progress happens because of the worst impulses of humanity, not necessarily because of our best impulses. And I think that's true to a certain extent, but I guess I would have liked to seen them show Ed as like not complacent like he was, like a fat complacent cat at the top of the pecking order, just completely self-satisfied because he's got his Rocket Man job still, and he's still top stick or still Top Gun, and I would rather him be like, see him like frustrated at the complacency and the stagnation, and how like like he should be outraged by what like that's not right what we're doing to these people. Like, how can we expect these people to leave their lives and come up here and we bait and switch them? Like, make him be like more of a revolutionary figure. But I don't know what the utility is of making him be this like very self-centered person and just pull this like I'm a Martian bullshit thing out of his ass at the end. Which,
I mean, when he explains it to Kelly, I get it, right? Like and it's the last episode, because this episode Kelly is not a factor at all. She shows up in one scene to be stunned.
What
by
did
Danielle.
Ed tell Kelly when we know? Because that's something that me and B were talking about. It's like, what, we had this big emotional thing about, you got to be honest with me, Dad, and he has honest about his personal motivations. But then she's like, okay, now what's really going on? What did he tell her? Did he say, mind your own business? Apparently.
Yeah, maybe he said, I need a day or two, and then I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But,
it would be nice to know.
Stuff, that's like where I was going with it, right?
Right, and I feel like that was both. They could have done either or, but those storylines took away from each other. Like, it would have been nicer if they had that characterization all completely lined up, and also I think it's bullshit that they treated that conversation with Kelly as a cliffhanger, and they just nope. Kelly comes in with a look of shock after Danny got shot, and she holds his hand, and that's
10 years at minimum before we revisit that conversation.
Yeah,
if ever.
And that
probably never.
I think Ed's dead next season, and that felt, again, this feels kind of rushed and slipshod.
Yep. But personally, it made some sense to me. They eventually got there with Ed. You get at least what's going through his head and why he's made some of the choices he's made. About him feeling like he's just going to waste away, be stuck in a nursing home, be completely useless and powerless as a human being if he goes back to Earth. So this is his new home, and I get that. That makes sense. So I didn't really have a huge problem with the choices he made, but I do feel like there was a better way to do it. And it probably involved Alex a little bit more, because none of that stuff really like connected ultimately. Like,
I know.
Okay, he uses Alex as part of his heist, but it felt like that was the culmination of the Alex plotline, and then boom, he's gone. Forget about Alex because he doesn't matter to the plot anymore.
Yeah, if you squint, you can definitely see it, but you put your glasses on and it comes into focus. Like, oh, that doesn't really. Those parts don't quite line up. You know.
On Earth, Aleda returns to Mission Control and tells Margo that they should go to her office. And once there, she tells Margo the news about Sergey. And then Margo does something impulsive, goes out and kind of like half confronts Irina about this in front of everybody, until she realizes that this may not be the place, or that she's not going to get anywhere with this, and then excuses herself. I'm trying to figure out what exactly is going through Margo's head here as she looks around at the faces gawking. Is she embarrassed, or is she like, this is doing no good?
I think the latter. She realizes, like, she's just operating on pure instinct, you know, when she calls the bullfinch out. She doesn't have any plan. I thought it was a really classy way to handle the disclosure, because it's like there's nothing more tedious than telling an audience something they already know, and they've been told twice now. Once when we saw Sergey's brains blown out, once when Aleda went through it. Now, doing the like, no, you know, we're outside a window just seeing Margo go through all 5 stages of grief in like 30 seconds and then literally swallow her emotions. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's a strong person. She's going to go out there and do her job. But then no, like she sees, I don't think she intended to call the bullfinch out, but like she hits the hallway and there her and Marv are. And she just cannot stay silent. And I really like, you know, and that's the thing is like she's seeing like Marv is there. Like, are you okay? Do I like, and this is a person who's powerful and could intercede, but she's doing the math and like what that would mean and if it would implicate a late. And she realized I'm trapped. I'm just as trapped as I was yesterday, and they've murdered my boyfriend.
Yeah.
And I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder how much of this led Margo into her, you know, progress is not free. I wonder how much of that, like, how much of this stiffened her spine.
Yeah, I mean, this is it, right? This is like, if you were pulling straws, this is the last straw, and Margo just can't. She doesn't care about the consequences to herself anymore.
Yeah.
She's just going to make a sacrifice of herself to continue the space program. There's a moment, a very small moment that I really love in this scene where we're watching sort of through the windows and Margo's going through that grief, and Aleda is just kind of standing there, like she's horrified. She sees what Margo's going through, and from off frame, just before Margo turns to leave, Aleda reaches toward her, and you can kind of see her hand come off the side of the frame, like she's going to put a hand on her shoulder, but then Margo spins and she pulls that hand back. And I like there's such, and combining that with the hug that she runs up to give her as she's being led away in chains at the end of this episode, there is a really powerful, like, characters who care deeply about each other, but one of them certainly, and maybe both of them, are not the type of people to show it. Even in these dire, just like awful circumstances, there's something
certainly
really,
not feel
like,
comfortable showing it.
Yeah. There's something real sad about that. That I really thought was a nice moment, and I don't even know how much of it was intended or planned.
Yeah.
Anyway, Gerardo is taken to the same room as Miles, and he tells him it's over. Miles does. And we'll see more of that here in a second, because the Ranger's about to begin the burn. They hit the burn window.
Again, really nice effects, very clean. It's just like, if this is what this would look like in real life, I felt like.
And you see Ed's team kind of reacting to this. It's like, okay, what the hell are we going to do? Because we're stuck here in the North Korean quarters. We don't have any way to communicate with Sam. We don't have any way to take over Ranger and control this burn. And then Ed notices some private North Korean radio gear, and they realize that they can use this to tell Sam to give them control of the engines. But in order to do that, she's going to have to do an EVA during the burn, which is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole description here about like her, and it's, you know, it's important because it's like these stakes are very much front and center throughout this episode. But she's got to go out to where I guess the engines meet the rest of the ship here and plug in a module that's going to allow them to communicate with the engines and also pull this manual override switch that's going to remove Ranger's ability to communicate with its own engines. But that can only be done outside the ship.
Yeah. I thought it was like the fact that the North Koreans' paranoia and the fact that they baked into the M7 charter that they'd have an exclusive ability to talk to their personnel privately. There'd be no interference by the Western. Yeah, it's like it's. I thought this is the part of For All Mankind. It felt like old For All Mankind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they even kind of like, you know, with Ed knowing Korea last episode, like he would be the one that kind of thinks about this stuff. And I thought this, yeah. Now, everything else, like you said, the manual override switch with the nice little plug-in to accept the pirate module and the fact that it's spring-loaded. Why the hell would you have a manual switch on the outside of a spacecraft that an astronaut would have to maintain positive pressure to keep the cutoff going? Like, what? But...
know, dude.
But this one thing they were cooking this North Korean communication gear.
Yep, I do like that. All right, Dev gets a hold of Sam.
Did you find it odd that Dev is the one that's like, as soon as Ed says about the radio, Dev just had a complete soup to nut solution involving all the components and all the hardware and something that Massey can do in about 60 minutes?
No. I mean, he's a smart guy.
And it is his spaceship, to be fair.
Yeah. He seems like the guy who might know about this stuff.
Yeah.
So Dev gets a hold of Sam through the Koreans on Ranger and sends her outside of the ship. She's spotted, though, on the security cameras. And Dev starts guiding her through the override EVA. Said you wanted to be an astronaut, didn't you? I don't think anything in the astronaut handbook says we're going to have to do an EVA during a burn, and we're going to be doing it against the wishes of NASA. That's the crazy thing. Like, NASA's not sanctioning this. This is not being an astronaut. This is being a space pirate, man.
So that's all of the execution of this scene I did not like, unfortunately, because I kept on thinking, how much thrust are we talking about here? Because Massey's grunting like she's Bad Danny from last episode or last season, trying to climb to the hub of the space station that's spinning at 3 Gs, but yet you look at her tether and it's just slack. When she lets go of the control panel, it just kind of floats until it hits the drive plume, and then it just takes off because apparently the ions pushed on it that hard. But like, they're not, and for some reason the thrust is like 15 degrees off axis, which I don't know, that might be part of the burn, but like none of this felt real. Like there's no, like from Massey's acting perspective and from the special effects, there is no frame of reference where this thrust feels like it's a thing. And I've seen shows do this so much better. I've seen shows where the point is I've seen this show do, like a inertial frame of reference better. Like I said, when Bad Danny did the climb up the elevator shaft, I think that was a lot better. It just really bugged me.
Huh. Yeah. It
like
really
it felt like the thrust was irrelevant unless the writers wanted you to notice it. You know, it's like the thrust came in when she's throwing a panel away, when Palmer's getting knocked off against his tether. Everything else, it's just like, she's grunting, but like her body is a 90-degree parallel to the thrust. Why the hell would you, and her tether is just kind of dangling there, limp and loose. It's not being pulled in any one direction. It just, like I said, it's just really sloppy.
Gotcha.
I did like the soundtrack. The soundtrack is amazing. It added so much tension that, like, this is a For All Mankind trademarked, a little kind of like putting a ticking sound effect inside, like a metronome, the soundtrack. It really amps the tension. It's like a Mission Impossible type of thing.
Yeah, surprisingly, this was not the part of the episode that really got me going. Even though, yeah, there's supposed to be a lot of tension in these scenes. I mean, Palmer pops his head out the hatch, and you're supposed to be like, oh, shit. And I just wasn't feeling it. Because more of an intellectual registration of it, but...
Yeah, who cares? Like, if Massey had flown into the drive cone, I would have been like, oh, that's interesting. If Palmer had fried in the drive cone, I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. But it's like...
It goes back to that, who am I rooting for here, Do I want the Martians to get the rock? Do I want Earth to get the rock? I'm not actually
like that.
certain.
Yeah, yeah. As a hypothetical Earther, how do I feel about what they're doing here? But mostly I just wish they did a better job with making Massey a fully three-dimensional realized character.
Sure.
Yep. I was thinking, like, we usually see people like Molly or Tracy or Danielle or Ellen in these situations, and we've gone all the way through their training. We've seen their home life. We know what this means to them. We know what being a pilot means to them, or doesn't mean to them. Massey just like, yeah, she wanted to be an astronaut always, except for the time she wanted to be a union labor person, or except the times that she was kind of interested in Miles in a relationship, and remember all the time like Miles getting jealous of watching her make time with, like, what the fuck was all this,
and them almost kissing. It's a little weird,
right? But she always wanted to be an astronaut. I swear to, did they make that up 2 episodes ago? And that's like, because it does feel like they were still, the ink was wet on these scripts when they were already been shooting for 6 weeks. I don't know. I don't know what went wrong, but it didn't exactly go right.
All right, so Ranger realizes what Sam's doing, and they tail Danielle, who sends Palmer out to put a stop to it. Then Bishop calls her aside and tells her that the crew might be in the North Korean module, the crew they're looking for, and he's waiting on approval to go in. And so Danielle gives them the heads up. She calls Ed over at the North Korean module and tells him to stop this. And Ed says, no, Mars is my home now, and hangs up on her.
Is this the ballsiest high bob in series history?
I loved it. And how it's so obviously and immediately not going to be returned.
Yeah, I love her in full mom mode. Like, Lee, put on Ed. Oh, I don't know what you mean. Ed's not here. Cut the crap, Lee. Don't maybe come down there.
And Ed's like, yeah, okay.
Hi, Bob. Again, I wish this tracked more. I was honestly shocked to see these things coming out of Ed's mouth. This kind of like raw Martian patriotism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they hadn't quite connected those dots.
I like it. It tracks with his character. It's just like I feel like they were writing him wrong. Him and Dev both kind of in the beginning of this season. It just wasn't, or maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm obtuse and I'm not seeing the grand architecture here. But it didn't. None of these moments quite landed the way I hoped they would have.
Yeah. And I kept thinking, where is Kelly in all this? As we tick closer to the end of this episode, I'm thinking, where is Kelly? What was this conversation they had?
Wouldn't it be interesting if Kelly had defected too, and she decided, like, yeah, you're right, they are going to strangle Mars, and I'm on board with this, Dad.
Yeah, like she was going to have Dev's robot army come out swinging or something at the end of this. I kept looking for the Kelly angle in all this, and it just never materialized.
Unleash the Hounds of War, and it's the Boston Dynamics robots running through the base.
Doing somersaults and spin kicks and shit. Yeah,
let's slip the bots of war. Cry havoc. And that is like the way like he like went. I mean, he's Beltalowda here. Like, oh, you well Walla tied to your little blue planet with its abundant. It feels like something next season or the season after that would say, but it was a lot for Ed to get to. I wish they'd move the pieces a little bit better. That's all.
Mm-hmm. So NASA gets word of what's going on with the Ranger, and they decide that they need to send a command to starve the engines of fuel, forcing them to shut down. But they have to send it quick because they got a 5-minute comms lag.
That's Coke bottle glasses, the new Bill, I guess. He is one sharp cookie. He has got a way to completely upend their plan with like 2 seconds of thinking.
Yep. It's I like him. Probably mostly because he looks like Paul Giamatti in some alternate universe. But
he is a little like a young Giamatti, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. He's on it. He knows exactly what needs to be done here. He susses out immediately what happens when this code goes wrong later.
It's so weird the things they do sweat, like having Will run in at the end and be like, the command takes 5 minutes to get there round trip, so we gotta like, okay, yeah, it's like that's. I guess they're sweating the big details, but and again, the idea that the Ranger doesn't have the authorization to shut down their engines, only NASA does from down here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if there was a problem? What if that fusion engine ran away?
I don't know, man. Yeah, it seems plot convenience stuff, but
yeah,
who knows?
It's very thermal exhaust port.
Yeah.
A lot of this is very thermal exhaust port.
Leda sees Margo alone in the observation lounge and asks her what's up, and she's thinking about the old times with her mentor Von Braun and how it relates to the decisions that she's made up until now and the one she's about to make. And Margo tells Leda that the future of the space program rests on Mars getting the asteroid.
I love this part so much.
Yeah.
I wish it was within a better season and a better episode, because I thought this stuff in isolation just worked so beautifully. The culmination of the Von Braun stuff, Margot's, mistakes and her idealism, it's not patriotism, what would be nationalism but for space? Spacealism.
Mm-hmm.
Space supremacy. I don't know what it is.
NASA-ism?
Advancement, exploration. She's an explorer at Sparta, and she doesn't want the humans to ever stop that. I really like it so much. I like how they both it's some interesting thing about the people lining their pockets and the other people lining their pockets not wanting the other people lining their pockets. Like, neither one of them had the ultimate say. Like, it's the two professors at the chalkboard that are like trying to architect a better humanity to just like, you know what, fuck it, YOLO. Let's just shut this down.
We can make this call for everyone. Let's do it.
Yeah, like they are going to put the thumb on the scale, which I don't know. That kind of, it does
terrifying. But
yes,
but in this scenario, like, it's always a matter of what is the specific thing we're talking about, and how do you feel about it, right? Because ideologically, I don't want anybody to have their finger on that much power and be able to push us in a direction against the will of the greater mass of people. But like, at the same time, if they're pushing it in a direction I agree with, it's hard not to say, yeah, you go.
It also is a little ahistorical because, like, it's, it breaks down the American Revolution analogy in that, not any one person or any two people did that thing. It took in, like, if George Washington hadn't stepped forward, there'd been any number of 5 generals that probably would have done the job, and we'd talk about how great they were. But then I think of, like, there are some times, like, I think of, like, like when Yeltsin got the 3 a.m. call about, like, there's been a nuclear launch, and he's just like, we need to massively retaliate. And he's like, this is fucking crazy. We're at peace. There's been nothing on the boards. Like, let's just, and and Kennedy and Khrushchev, going toe to toe, eye to eye, but not actually nuking each other. Sometimes it does come down to 1 or 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
But they're usually not mid-level engineers in a space program.
Yeah, you usually don't have that much power in those positions.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like I said, it's a complicated thing. I'm torn. And if this season has succeeded in any way, I think it's in that way.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's what they were going for. And so that's probably the saving grace of this season is they pointed out to the billboard and they said that's where we're hitting the ball. And maybe they corked their bat, but they hit the ball out there for sure.
They did.
And
They
and
did.
I felt it. I felt it connect. It made a lot of sense. It in the end, like the overall place where we ended up, I think it worked. It's just there was a lot of rough road.
Yeah, and I feel like if you and I say it worked, and we are very inclined to go with what this show, like we are in the tank for this show. Like ever since we were little boys, this is the kind of shit that we've been into. Mm-hmm. It's just a damn shame that this show is doing such a good job of getting to this point, but like they have thrown up so many barriers to entry that it's hard to recommend. Yeah, For All Mankind is amazing. It keeps getting better and better. And the things it says about the future of mankind and where we need to go to get there is amazing. But like, here's the thing: each season past the first two is going to get a little worse and worse. And by the time you get there, you might not even care. And like, that's a harder sell than like, oh my god, this thing has been amazing. Everything is connected. The things in season 2 ripple into season 4, and boy, they have some really interesting things about to say about like what we need to do as people to advance and what's important, what's not important. It's like I said, I wish it'd done it better because what they are trying to do is extremely ambitious and very interesting, and I think important for us to think about. Just like I thought I wish Westworld had done a better job because I think people seriously think about AI and getting out of the fucking RoboCop and Terminator paradigms, like the killer robot. Like that would be so to talk about AI and like before we actually have to in a way that we could. That stuff is valuable. This art stuff is valuable. I just wish these Westworld and For All Mankind had done it a little better. And
look, man,
For All Mankind was doing it up until this season, so maybe this
thing.
is just a sidestep.
I'm less hesitant to recommend For All Mankind to people than let's say Star Trek: The Next Generation, because For All Mankind starts off fully loaded. Like there is nothing I would complain about the first season. You can't say that about Star Trek: The Next Generation. Can't say that about most shows. Like the firm footing that this show started off on is kind of remarkable. And when you say, oh, it gets worse every season beyond 2, I'm like, okay, maybe, but not appreciably. Like this is the first season where I feel like there's been an appreciable drop in quality of storytelling.
Yeah, and if this is just a rough patch because they're trying to get from a like an old the original TOS, the old scientists, the original series to a Next Generation, because that's kind of what they're trying to do, and this is just a rough patch, and maybe it was a little bit shortened because they're trying to get this out before the strike. I don't know. Maybe all that stuff is true. I just wish. This is the golden age of television, man. We don't put up with shows taking 3 seasons to get good, And certainly, if shows starting to fall off, that's another problem too. So I again, where we're at the end of the season, I'm excited. I'm excited for next season, but I have a lot more questions and a little bit more of a shaken faith than I thought I would be coming in, to a potential season 5.
All right. Well, we still have some of season 4 to talk about.
No kidding.
Sam attaches a transceiver. They start receiving the data over in Ghost Ops, and Dev stresses that the override handle needs to stay up for the entire duration of the burn, just as Palmer emerges from the hatch. Oh, ominous. This is just kind of setting up the stakes for the fight that's about to happen here.
Yeah.
Then we get back over to Margo, who has some code that should stop the engine shutdown, and Aleda insists that she be the one to upload it. For perfectly valid reasons. I think like having Margo do anything out of the ordinary is going to raise suspicions here. So yeah.
I did wonder what the deal with them dueling entry. Like,
yeah, this is super weird. So he's establishing the uplink while she's putting in the signal to send?
I don't know, because Margo has like a legal size sheet of paper that has the code written in pencil. And that's the other thing. Like, I'm a programmer. it's hard to write a hello world message box pop up and have it compile right the first time, you know?
Sure, yeah.
Let alone like this, there's a full page of text just for the pirate shit that Aleda and Margo's trying to inject at the last minute. This guy's writing a fucking Bible, and it's like, hi. So I don't know. I just thought it was weird to have this pair program. It's like, what are you both doing?
I did
You
too,
know?
yeah.
It's like I wish they'd like said that there's a 2-step thing. Like, you know, he's writing the actual instructions and I'm writing the subroutines that execute them all together, and she just slides a reset into the last little nested loop or whatever. I don't know, the last object that executes. But I guess this show's not written for me. It's written for people that don't know that know less than I do. Certainly about programming, probably about spaceflight.
Yeah.
Didn't used to feel that way though, right?
No, I agree. Yeah. Feels like it used to sweat details like this much more closely.
And again, it might be because they were sweating details that like NASA had spent billions of dollars developing, and now they're just kind of like making shit up. But it's something I can feel for sure.
Okay, let me ask you a question about something that I'm certain they have to get right. There's no way this can be as blatantly obviously wrong as I think it is. So they're watching a clock. So Will says, okay, we've got to get this sent within X number within very quickly, because we have a 5-minute communications lag on this thing. It takes 5 minutes to get a signal up to Ranger. And they're watching this clock, which is matched to Ranger's actual clock. And on that clock, it's saying 2 minutes when they send this signal.
No, 2 minutes is when they have to stop the burn?
No, it's 2 minutes because she's fighting Palmer for like a minute and a half.
Okay.
This is 2 minutes until they have to stop the burn.
Uh-huh.
So they've already missed their window. If this is if this is Ranger's actual clock, they've already missed the window, haven't they?
That checks out, actually.
That can't be right. They can't.
I'm trying to
miss
think
a
because like
that.
Yeah, I'm like I wonder if we're because like I
have to be missing something.
I'd have to go back and watch the graphics again to see what they're at, because there's like a window of burn. But like you're right, I thought clearly it's like they had to shut that off. Clearly, when Palmer's like, "You got 12 seconds, Palmer," they're still in that window.
They are, yeah. This
so
is
if they
the
haven't
actual clock they're watching.
Yeah, that might be that feels like a big boner, but I'm with you. Surely not.
Surely
We've just been nitpicking. That's just wrong, you know.
Yeah, and that's just putting your lack of attention to detail on screen. There's no way they would do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, please, if you know what's going on with that clock and the timing of it and the communications lag, let me know. So Sam continues, Palmer climbs out to Sam's location and ambushes her, and a battle ensues. He throws her out of the way, almost off the ship, but she catches a handhold. And she climbs back up and attacks him just as he's trying to cut through the strap, holding the override handle in place. And he is launched away from the ship and held at the end of his tether. Which I guess is just the end of it. I kind of expected him to start reeling himself in, you know? That there's not that much thrust, right? Like,
yeah,
this is a strapping dude. He could definitely pull himself in on this tether.
But on the other hand, it's like also too late. But
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was all. I also kind of thought someone should have gotten drive coned. I felt like someone should have died this episode.
Yeah, because I expected Palmer to, right? I expected him to go out on the end of the tether and just get disintegrated by that ion drive or whatever.
Yeah.
The plasma drive, but he doesn't.
He just like misses it by feet, which I'm not like, look, I think in space, if you missed a drive cone by an inch, it's the same as missing by a mile. There's no heat convection. There's apparently there's no radiation to worry about. It's just, ions getting pushed out there. But it's like one of those things where it's like, this was a fight to the death. When he threw Massey off the end, like, that's a death sentence.
He's trying to kill her. Yeah, for sure.
He's trying to kill her, or at least not caring if she does die. I thought it was kind of cheap that he had a tether just long enough to... Well, I guess that's exactly why you would have a tether that long. But I felt like someone should have died. But I'm like, they're trying to not to more morally load this.
Yeah.
It's just...
That's what it felt like to me. And I think it's probably the right call ultimately, because I don't, I'm ready
lets
for
him
Sam
give,
to
like,
steal this asteroid, but maybe not to murder people.
Yeah. And when they go with the big, like, sweeping shot and the music swelling, that'd be a harder thing to pull off if they just fried some dude,
I think so,
in the drive.
And I don't hate Palmer. That's the other thing. Like, he seemed like a hard ass at times. He seemed like an okay guy at times. He's just doing his job. He's doing what he thinks is right for humanity. I kind of, that's where I say it gets real murky who I'm rooting for here. I don't want either of them to die, and
is it weird?
But I do want Sam to succeed.
Yeah, and is it weird to say I thought Palmer's an odd choice to go out there and intercept Massey? Like, he's the middle-aged, like, manager of the thing. Like, you've got all these young, strapping astronauts. Like, why not send one of them out there? But they wanted Palmer, who's kind of been the heavy, the bad, the left hand of the anti-labor movement, the union busting, to do it, I guess.
And look, man, if there's a super dangerous job to be done, it feels like the higher up should take a little bit of that responsibility. Maybe don't send a peon out there to do this incredibly dangerous thing. Maybe take a little responsibility.
This man's 50 and overweight.
Oh, he's overweight. He's stout. He's thick. He's strong.
Yeah. Diabetic, high cholesterol, bad knees, glaucoma.
Oh, no. Bad knees. In space, knees don't matter.
Spastic colon. He's trying to square off against mid-30s prime of life. Hard charging astronaut
right?
Sam Massey. I don't know.
She's already killed one guy, hasn't she?
Has she?
No, I don't think that was her. That was what's her name? Who I've forgotten that Ed was falling in love with.
Oh, Svetlana.
Yeah, Svetlana.
Yeah.
I always confuse them. All right, Ed's team celebrates their victory, whereas Danielle's team and NASA all sit in stunned silence as the asteroid moves into Mars orbit. The Paul Giamatti-looking guy realizes that somebody tampered with the code, and Arena immediately accuses Aleda, but Margo's there to claim that she did it, which is a pretty good scapegoat, and it's not entirely untrue.
It's not entirely untrue, but I feel like an investigation is going to reveal that Aleda was like, come on, this, like, you could pull something in mission control.
Well, maybe she just, I typed in the code I got. It was too fast for me to think about what I was typing.
Yeah, like Margo gave me this code. I trusted her to, and I guess she plays the patsy, but
totally.
Yeah, I don't know. The FBI is gonna deprive him of oxygen and pump him full of CO2 and see what happens, I guess.
It was just so delicious though when Margo's like, "No, I did it, Arena.
Yeah,
look me in the eye here. Your pet snake just bit you. You get what you deserve."
Right.
Yeah, I love that moment.
There will be consequences. It's a toothless thing because I don't buy the Russians pulling the diplomatic immunity. Why the fuck would they let Margo be in American custody? Like, you saw how hard they fought to punish Svetlana.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that, like, the Bullfinch has no... Maybe that's what they're telling me, that the Bullfinch has no political power, that she's already, persona non grata as soon as she fails this important mission, and Russia's like, we want to be... that President K, whatever his name is, wants to be just completely done with this whole thing and move on, save fate. So they just, like, don't care about Margo. But I thought that's they're letting her off the hook, man. I'd much rather be in U.S. custody than Russian custody, for fuck. I mean, 10 times out of 10 and 10 times on Sunday. It's crazy.
I'm with you. I was like, oh, Margo got off easy here. So we get a news report on the status of Goldilocks going into Mars orbit, and there's an emergency meeting of the M7 called. That's all kind of just news stories. And then we see Danielle, who sees Bishop unloading a whole bunch of weapons to go raid the North Korean module, and she tries to stop it, but he doesn't acknowledge her orders because he's got orders from higher up. This is where, I mean, Danielle's just fully lost control of the space. I do wonder what consequences there's going to be for Danielle. Probably not much.
I mean, yeah, how could you possibly pin something on her? Like, she had no knowledge. Like, this is stuff the CIA and the KGB were doing on their own. Like, I think if anyone
she'll
comes
be called
out
in to lead the next Mars mission, but
and you know what? Throw me in that briar patch, she says. I do. Yeah, she's like, good.
Yeah.
Blacklist me. Don't ever get me out of Earth's orbit. I just want to retire with my grandbabies and watch Star Trek. Yeah.
Yep. Apparently, they only have three series to get through, though. Did you catch this?
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that in feedback.
All right, cool.
I've got some answers.
Me too. So the Russian spy continues beating Gerardo and Miles when Ilya and his ass beaters break in and beat the shit out of him, rescuing Gerardo and Miles. This is where things start to get really exciting. Like, as soon as Miles was like, you know what? Let's send them a reminder of who really runs this base. I'm like, fuck yes.
I was too. I got fucking pumped.
This is the moment where my heart starts beating fast. I'm like, give what you just got.
Yeah.
Because justice needs to be served.
Why does Ilya come in to the rescue?
I don't
That's another
know.
drop thread because I think they were ready to serve that plot with him being like, hey, I'm never going to forget this, Ilya. They needed him to do something for Ilya nice of his own free will, for Ilya to feel like him running into to rescue would be something believable.
A conversation with him and Sam maybe that's just like, nah, I don't hold it against Miles. This is just
business.
Yeah, this is the business.
And I was getting too old for it. Yeah, something. But it's like, as it is, it just feels like another kind of misconnection where I want to go with it. There's nothing that says I couldn't, but like, it'd be nice for you guys to actually make that connection.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, I was like, well, I thought you always say show don't tell, A.Ron. Yes, but you got to do one or the other.
You got to do something.
You can't show me, tell me, but you can't not show, not tell, and that's not good storytelling either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Ed sees the goon squad coming, and like I said, Ilya gets word. And Miles decides to send them a reminder of who really runs the base. All of the Helios workers make their way to the North Korean module. A riot breaks out. Danielle goes down there to stop it, but her and Ed end up kind of caught up in it too. And the guy who stole the gun earlier decides now's the time to whip it out. And he gets attacked. The gun goes off, and it hits Danielle in the chest. And then they take Danielle to the med bay where they're going to operate on her, but it's not looking good.
Dude, I love Lee ordering his men to protect our territory, and they're like all like they don't understand what's going on, but yeah, they can definitely mix it up with the Americans trying to bully their way into their territory. Miles fucked up Bishop so bad with that lead pipe Martian deal that I couldn't believe that he was breathing.
Right.
I thought that was like a lethal blow. Like, it just looks like he like hits him with a titanium hammer and nothing. And you know what's funny is like I've said this many times. Like I just got done watching The Gilded Age on HBO, and it's about this kind of robber baron era of organized labor starting to unite against the conglomerates and fight for the things that we take for granted: weekends, 8-hour work weeks, overtime, sick pay, and I know this was set in the corridors of Mars and not like in the streets of New York and Philadelphia, but it's seeing this fight is exactly the same. Like, people had to fight and bleed for the things that we take for granted today, and I don't know, I thought it was really interesting that I wonder like if we have to go through another period of that, and in the decades to come, like what will we think about this in the 21st century? But it looked exactly like every other labor riot I've ever seen. It's people just desperate scuffling, blood, teeth flying everywhere.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful that all the mechanisms that we've developed for checks and balances and giving people more power over their lives will hold up over the coming turmoil. But there's a lot of turmoil coming.
Yeah, it's a lot of people tearing out those systems, those safety valves too, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, but I look at it and I'm like, are we better or worse off than we were 100 years ago with this stuff? Well, there's a hell of a lot more mechanisms in place, right, for people to express their desires and power. And yeah, we're doing better. So hopefully the next thing, the next round of this stuff that has to happen will not be as violent and bloody. It'll be a little more civilized and just as effective.
Like Mulder says, I want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
I did think it's interesting because like there's like when the gun goes off, I'm like, well, there's one of two things are going to happen. This is going to sober everyone right the fuck up, or this is going to really kick off the blood. Like, you know, it's like, oh my God, they're killing people now. It's going to, and probably through the force of will of Ed and like it, you know, like Ed just clears a path. Like, get the hell out of my way. I got to get Danny to the sick bay. And like I said, I still think Ed ever respected Danielle as a fellow astronaut. Like, I still think he thought she was a diversity hire and all the, like, I think he saw some ugly stuff, but he does clearly care about her, like, on a friend level and doesn't want to see her die and is ready to completely set aside the asteroid, everything else, just to get her to safe. And because, you know, that's all we talked about last week is how, like, the writing's on the wall. Danielle's going to die. I was already waterworking. And what did you think about that long shot out in the hallway where they're like going and seeing everybody shocked, looking at everybody, you know, working on Danny, and they linger on the CIA goon, and then they linger on Miles? Like, I viscerally didn't like that scene.
I think I liked it. I wasn't feeling that scene as much as I was thinking about that scene while it was happening. I'm like, what are they trying to tell me here? And it was more of an intellectual exercise than what I feel like it should have been, which is me feeling and understanding it intuitively. But while I was thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, what they're trying to do here is effective. It's working. Which to me, what they're trying to do there is show like all of these people with all of these competing ideas on what needs to happen. What is their goal? You know, sometimes they're at odds, sometimes they're not, and here we are. We've gotten to this place, and it's a moment of sobriety.
Yeah, I just wish that we could have spent a little bit more time with Ed and Danny and like deal, you know, like, because that's the people I care about. You know, Ed, Danny, and Kelly are in that room, and I guess Dimitri, but it's like we were pulled out of that. Like, I was rushed out of that room. And then I'm standing with a bunch of strangers in the hallway. Is what it felt like to me. And it's like the weird, like, lingering on the CIA guys. Like, what the hell was that? But you're right. I felt like they were trying to do something rather than just like let us have that moment. But also, I was a little bit mollified when it turns out that good Danny didn't die. You know, if she had been dead and that's the last time we saw her alive, I would have been like, why the fuck are we doing this long pan down the hallway of anonymous assholes? Like, who gives a shit? But she didn't die, so thank God. Don't have to riot.
Yeah. And we get our first Kelly sighting this episode, which felt also a little weird. Like, oh, did you get to bring her in here now? Sure. And not do anything with her.
I liked a little bit of the irony of, like, Danny potentially getting Ed's death, the good death, you know, going out, boots on, guns blazing. While he's the one that's trying to court it. She's tried to avoid it. She just wants to get back to her grandbabies and Star Trek. And he wants to die in a blaze of glory. And she's going to get his death. And he's going to be condemned to be the... I was like, man, that's kind of interesting. But I'm glad they didn't do it. Because I would have... I don't know. I don't know what I had done if they'd killed Danny. Thank God they didn't.
It's kind of... This is sort of the denouement here. But not really. Not yet. We see Margo taken into custody by the FBI after the Russians withdrew her diplomatic immunity, and Aleda hugs her as she's escorted out in chains. We see her name has been vandalized on the plaque out there. I really like this scene. I think if this is going to be the bookend for Aleda and Margo, it's kind of perfect. And like I said, it pairs with, you know, the sort of hands-off nature of these characters dealing with difficult emotional baggage. It culminates in them, this is the last chance she's going to get to say anything to Margo, and she says it physically.
Also, because I'm a big Molly Cobb stan, I like that this is the definitive end to their argument that they started last season. Like, Margo's getting marched out of Molly's house, and her name is scratched out of the list of dead in disgrace. Like,
Sure, I think
Molly's
she won that.
Molly's up in heaven smoking a dude, being like, "That's right, bitch. They got ya." You know?
Uh, yep, good stuff. And then Arena, going back to Star City here, where she finds agents awaiting her in her office. Pretty ominous looking. And we sort of get a voiceover here from Margo summing up the season, which is the sort of messy nature of right and wrong. And this is all apparently happening during her testimony at her trial. She says something to a judge specifically.
Yeah. This is her, like, her sentencing speech or whatever. I know I broke a lot of laws, and probably going to write a lot of in space laws that are going to be that couldn't be broken because no one knew they could. But here's what I think about things. It is nice because it's like, I keep going back to, like, this being a referendum on how you feel about the American Revolution if you were forced to live through it. And America had a lot of bad things that went into its formation, and a lot of bad faith actors, a lot of terrible things kind of baked into its bones. And yet, 200, almost 50 years later, what can you, like, good, bad, or indifferent, it's been a huge impact on the world. And the idea that sometimes you get to these inflection points in history where a few people go in YOLO changes things for better or worse. And it's an open question. I like how it's an open question of what did things change for the better. Yeah. Like, are we rooting, like, there's a lot to be said about taking an asteroid back to Earth and helping 6 billion people rather than a few hundred, thousand scientists to explore Mars. That's a real that I don't know that the show definitively answers. Like, it's all going to be like, I guess we've got 3 more seasons, hopefully, to see how it unfolds. But I really like that.
Yeah, and that being sort of a long play, sort of wing and a prayer thing where, like, we're hoping that space exploration will lead somewhere good for everybody, but we don't really know that. Whereas you take that back to Earth, it probably would do a lot of good. Right here and now. So, yeah, it's complicated. I don't have an answer, and it's kind of it's my favorite part of this season. Like I said, they landed that craft pretty well.
What'd you think of all the crashing the asteroid on Mars theories that was flying around last week? Or I don't know, maybe you weren't aware of it since you were febrile, but there's a lot of people, like, cause like the idea of, like, well, if something is parked in Martian orbit, it can be unparked. And the idea was, like, the dev was going to smash the asteroid on the surface of Mars to A, make it easier to mine, and B, to make sure the Earth can't steal it back.
And make sure that it scours the face of the planet of any life whatsoever.
Well, that was the max cynical option. He's gonna intentionally crash it into that one crater that Kelly was studying for life because it was, like, established it was, like, on the other side of the world, like 4,000 kilometers away. And I think you could crash this into Mars and it wouldn't fuck up the whole planet. It's barely any atmosphere to carry a shockwave. It's like, what? It's 100 kilometers. Yeah, it's like.
I don't know how that would react.
But obviously that's not happened. And my response is, like, I think they positioned this as, like, a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's like, with the second Voyager probe, or maybe it's the first one, the grand tour of the solar system that they slingshotted, and they were able to see all the 4 outer planets for the first time. And it was like there's like a 6-month window we can do this, and it won't be open for another 70 years. And sometimes it's like that. Like, the solar system is not obliged to give you gravity assist to any place you want. So, like, my thought was, like, if they didn't get this slingshot, the opportunity to get it redirected to Earth safely and efficiently is just gone. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and Mars has got it now. So if Earth wants any of it, they're going to have to go through Mars. So I don't know that that's a plot hole. I'm curious to see how other people feel about it. fam@baldmove.com if you got some thoughts, and we'll talk about it.
All right, let's talk about something that I find fairly implausible. It's been a thread this entire season practically. It's Lee's wife.
Horseshit.
We see Lee's wife smuggled in
A crate of horseshit.
a crate, a Helios crate. She's unloaded at the base, and not only is she unloaded, but what? I don't know. Half the population of North Korea comes out of this fucking crate. They have smuggled not just one human being, but a whole gaggle of human beings up onto Mars. Presumably anybody who wanted to go. Maybe Willy Wonka
world.
did a golden ticket thing. I don't know, but this is buck wild. This is insane.
Especially the fact that this was a clandestine mission. Because here's the thing: they want us to be like, well, this is America in 1620. Like, if you can get on a boat and cross the Atlantic Ocean, you can start a new life. It is not anywhere. Like, I get it. It's like,
DiCaprio's not stowing away on the next mission to Mars. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, you need atmosphere and food and water and, like, even for a 4-week journey, like, you couldn't stow. Like, I thought, yeah,
you're not going to come up from
they...
steerage, steal a cupcake, and retreat back to, eat it and live for another day. Like, the air alone for these people in this tiny ass crate, you need a month's supply at minimum for these people, and that's with no margin of error.
No, I wish they had just left this ambiguous. Because the thing is, like, the whole year we've been saying, like, how in the hell are you ever going to get this woman out of North Korea, then into a clandestine cargo, and doing it and have like 30 people come out of there like a clown car? It's just stupid.
Absurd. This is the dumbest thing. I hate this.
And Lee's like, a what face? Like, how would you not know this, dude? How would you not know that your wife was on a manifest of 30 people? Like, why wouldn't Miles? Like, I just, it's just, I thought.
Why is Miles risking life and limb here to get 30 random people up here? Also,
the fact that people want to get to Mars because it's the new world, capital N, capital W, that checks out. It's just, and if you told me that, like, 5 years later this was happening, but like on the cusp of the asteroid being stolen and like, do you know how vindictive Earth would be? Like, it would take like Dev and Ed years of negotiation to coaxing and being like, look, we got this fat asteroid up here just rotten, we're food self-sufficient, we can wait as long as you want, but eventually you're going to want it's just the ultimate shortcut. However, let's get to the next scene so I can talk about something I actually, like, unironically love with all of my heart.
Danielle makes it back to Earth alive and gets to see her granddaughter.
Dude, I was crying so hard the first time I saw this. Like, I saw Danny in the wheelchair, instantly started sobbing. She smiles and gets up from the chair. She's not paralyzed or nothing. I'm sobbing harder.
Yeah.
She sees her grandbaby, just ugly crying. I can't even see the screen. I had to rewind, and this fucked up thing. I couldn't see or hear what was going on, so I rewound it to see what I missed, and I'm like, oh my god, she's crying and she's laughing because this destroyed me, dude.
Wow.
This is like the crying equivalent of, like, when you're throwing up and you've, like, thrown up like so many times you can't, and just dry heaving. That's what my tear ducts were doing. I was like, oh my god, because I was convinced she was dead.
Yeah.
So when she was, like, fine and reunited with her beautiful family and they're all smiling,
I do really love it's not necessarily a fake out, but I love the idea that, like, okay, we're gonna wheel these asteroids. She's been on Mars, her muscles are atrophying for months at a time here. Let's wheel her to where she needs to be.
I didn't even think of that.
But then you're like, oh no, she's been paralyzed, or she's gonna have some diminished quality of life now. And then she stands up and you're like, oh, that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. I was so happy on the first time through. I just felt like my heart was going to burst that she survived this fucking season.
I did not want her to die on Mars. She didn't want to die on Mars, so I didn't want her to.
Convinced she would, though, man. I was convinced she would.
Yeah, I definitely thought she could have been dead at the end of the previous scene with her.
I gotta say, I do think somebody should have died. Somebody, like someone in the Ed, Danny, Kelly tier. Miles, Sam.
Al Gore summarily executed Eli.
Marv! He calls Steel Team 6 and has him executed for failing the fatherland. Yeah, no, that would have...
Yeah, Tim or whatever comes down and does it personally himself.
Marv hangs himself in his office from the disgrace. And somebody, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't know. It worked for me.
Maybe Margo gets it's her turn to get the Big Mac.
Yep.
Something.
Could be shanked in her cell. I don't know. Dev drinks in the view from his new home up on Mars. The edge of this massive crater. This crater's big on Mars. Didn't realize. Huge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 2012 now, and mining is just in full swing at Kuznetsov Station. Kuz got his own station.
He does. What a fucking Chad. I didn't know this song by name, but I like it. It's like definitely they say they do a really good job of like defining the era with not like something you would just like, oh, that's that's the song of the era, but it kind of captures the feel. It's Midnight City by M83.
Oh, okay.
They're like a French techno band or something.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with the song. I'm not at all familiar with the names of it. Same. But I thought it was a perfect, another one of those perfect throwing the ball 10 years into the future. And like I said, I saw that Kuznetsov station, and I'm like, I'm in for another season. But I'm speaking directly to Matt Woolport and Ben Nadivi here. Guys, tighten the shit up. Yeah.
You guys, this is not. You have spoiled us in terms of characters and plotting and it pounds our pulse. It gets us all excited, hot and bothered. This is not good enough. This is not up to your guys' standards. Yeah, I don't know what went wrong. I don't know what got away from you, but if this is going to be a successful Enterprise USS NCC class, you got to get this shit tightened down. We can't have nacelles falling off, okay?
For sure. Yeah, I want to see a return to form next season.
Yeah.
But that's the end of this one.
Well, we have a lot of feedback.
Okay. What are we going to do with that?
Should we get to that now?
That sounds good to me.
All right. Send us feedback. We'll probably do a season review wrap up, I imagine, unless there's just like crickets from feedback. But I don't think that's going to be the case. We'll see. FAM@baldmove.com is how you send feedback. And, of course, follow us on all our social medias @baldmove, except for TikTok. We're @baldusmove there. And if you like what we've done throughout the season, which is try to be honest fans of the television that we love, and that we can share our passions with you, we would love to have your support. Support.baldmove.com is how you can get extra bonus content and ad-free feeds. Who doesn't want that? And you keep Bald Move moving baldly. Jim, you want to take this first one?
Sure. Jack P. writes in, says, how has the substation office not been discovered yet? Ah, yes. Man after my own heart here. They keep ransacking the poor working folks' quarters without even thinking to search the sublevels. They already know that the black market deals happened down there and that a bar was being operated for a long time. How do you not immediately search every square inch of the pressurized area of the station? How do you have cameras down there how do you not have cameras down there in the first place? Why are you interrogating and beating Miles' ass before even checking down there? Feels like a plot hole. Not the first of the season, certainly. Still enjoying, though. Hope for a nice, clean heist. Welcome back from the holidays, and feel better soon, Jim. Thank you. I do feel better. Not 100%, but better.
I'm glad to have you back, and also, special thanks to B. Michael for helping us break it down last week in Jim's absence. But I'm glad you're back too. Obviously, yeah, we wondered the same thing. These are things that need to be tightened down next episode, because this is something that's not really on my radar until like B brought it up last week, and Jack here brought it up. But like, yeah, it does, like, with the timeline that we had where it's months. It's hard to believe that no one thought to look down here, that no one noticed anybody.
Especially in the second round of searches. Like, okay, the first round, doesn't turn anything up. Well, we've searched the whole station. Second round, where have we not searched?
Not only that, but like for a whole month, these people have to work shifts down here. It's not like they're just going down there and that's the one time. Like multiple times a day, they're going up and down. They're moving food and supplies down there. Like it's hard to believe that in this one central elevator that no one ever noticed something unusual going on.
I did find it funny when Miles is about to go in there to the elevator to, you know, get to the 4th floor or whatever, and one of the workers comes in and he has to do like an about face and pretending he's reading something so that he can be the only one in the elevator. Yeah, I like it.
Imagine all the dudes that are loading like the go stop stuff, and they just got plotted like they're like, oh, let me hold the door for, oh no, we'll take the next one. There is not a next one. There's only one elevator in this whole fucking base. Oh, it'll be fun. Like nothing weird in a high security checkpoint atmosphere where you got to show papers to go from the mess to your hall. Yeah, you're onto something there, Jack. Let's move on to an actual murderous bear who says, they've been loving the coverage this season. I still love the show, but damn, it sure does feel like this season has been committing so many unforced errors with their lack of focus on details or hand-waving certain things away. At first, I thought A.Ron in particular is being too harsh, but nah. The whole time Margo and Sergey were chatting about Aleda's dining room table, not exactly quietly, I might add, about defecting to Brazil, I was waiting for a cut to Aleda hearing this. It does feel like she's warming up to Margo slightly since she's been helping her with Sergey, but what if hearing this sets her off and she talks? A lot of people are wondering if Margo or Aleda or both had it in for Sergey. It doesn't seem like it. He says, I also laughed when Margo told Sergey she can't just run off because she's watched 24/7. I could also hear Jim in the background screaming, well, how did you go to the diner then, Margo?
Yeah.
See, the Marine and the KGB spook only follow her closely when she's inside the NASA building. You know, outside, it's like, you know, like, you're on your own recognizance.
It's also insane. Can I point out one thing that is absolutely...
Do it.
It kills me. And as people who film things for a living, maybe more detail should be paid. They know this. They know this fact. What happens when it gets dark outside and you turn a light on in your living room? Do you think people can see you?
Yes.
What do you do when you don't want people to see you in that state? You close the fucking blinds, right?
Yes.
They are sitting in the dining room of Aleda's house, blinds open, like just full window open, and they're like totally secure in the fact that no one can see them with the fucking lights on. The blinds are open in other rooms. Like, it kills me. Close the blinds at night if you don't want people seeing you.
He parked 2 blocks away and cut through a neighbor's backyard. All right?
Yeah, only to completely fuck up the subterfuge when he sits in front of this window.
Ironclad spycraft.
So stupid. So stupid. You cannot leave the blinds open at night and expect people not to see you.
Murder Bear says, also, another insane thing. It's insane Sergey just left his wife and job on a whim, and there have been 0 mentions of that since. So now she gets to find out he killed himself. He killed himself in a random Texas motel eating a catched-up Big Mac. He says, faux Margo deserved better. I agree. Like, you think of it from her perspective, this is insane.
Well, this is a man who couldn't stand being around me. He ran away. He thought he was going to live a different life, apparently, and then he killed himself because he realized it was all too much.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy. All right, Maxwell writes in. Says, in your coverage of episode 9, Brazil, you mentioned the Monroe Doctrine and wondered if the Soviets ever operated and assassinated anyone in the Americas. I think you specifically mentioned North and Central America. Most famous example, which immediately came to mind, was the assassination of Leon Trotsky in 1940 at his home in Mexico City by Spanish communist and NKVD, which is pre-KGB agent, Ramon Mercader. I didn't do any research on other Soviet assassinations in the Americas, but knowing a bit about the audacious nature of the Soviet Union, I'd be amazed if they hadn't.
So I actually looked into this because I'm like, okay. And I guess, I found an article that kind of broke down all the Soviet assassinations that we know of. And it is rare, but the Soviets did assassinate political targets. They did it in New York City back in 1937. As he mentioned, Mexico City in 1940. Washington, D.C., of all places, in 1941. It does seem like these were all confined to like the Stalin era, you know, in like a time when the U.S. it had a very strong motivation to be nice with the Soviets because we were supporting them in the war against Hitler and whatnot. But like, yeah, I gotta concede that the Russians have not been shy about even in the capital of the United States. And these were all political. These were all like what you'd call, I guess, traitors to the motherland. People that Stalin had a boner against, or ex-intelligence, like double agents, people like that. But
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Maxwell continues here. He says, the other feedback I had was about you guys repeatedly saying that Kuz was the Soviet cosmonaut commander for the Apollo-Soyuz mission. This is incorrect. The marvelously mustachioed Stephen Alexeyev was the Soviet commander for Apollo-Soyuz. Unless I'm mistaken, which is not entirely impossible, the first time Danielle met Kuz was after the Soviets blew their fusion drive during the race to Mars and had to be rescued. If you recall, there was a great deal of tension as Danielle continued, rightly so, to act as the commander for all on board. Kuz repeatedly reminded her not to give orders to his cosmonauts.
I would have sworn on a stack of Bibles a mile high that this Alexeyev was the same guy as Kuz. Because Kuz has got the like more of the full beard, and the other guy, like you said, is very mustachioed. But I thought they were setting up Danielle and his friendship way back to like season 2. Clearly that was a boner. Know. Yeah, so I appreciate the correction on that. Next is Frank. He says, in your discussion about which original characters would survive into season 5, Good, Danny, Ed, and Margo were discussed. But you overlook President Ellen Wilson. Perhaps she decides to use her post-presidency to influence Mars, NASA, national cooperation. Who knows? But she and Pam could be effective in season 5. Yeah, Ellen feels like she's definitively put out the pasture. You know? Like, I know she's totally young enough that she could still be kind of a vital force. I don't know if I see it. So, but yeah, I mean, egg on my face if I'm wrong.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they'll realize they have a shortage of characters we care about and bring one of them back. We'll see. All right, Josh writes, why would someone buy a Big Mac, get it ready to eat, and then commit suicide before consuming it? That's some sloppy assassin work, if you ask me.
Well, have you eaten a Big Mac lately?
Yeah, he stared into the eyes of the Big Mac. He realized this was all he had to look forward to.
Yeah.
And did the inevitable.
You stare into the abyss, and the 1,000 eyes of the abyss with its sesame seeds stare back. And yeah, but really, it's like, I think that's maybe, I don't know, that could be, because that's like a big joke about like a Soviet assassination attempts. Like, oh, the guy committed suicide. He shot himself 3 times in the back of the head. Like, maybe they're doing a point, but yeah, it is funny. The guy's so depressed at seeing the Big Mac that he just blew his brains out.
Yeah, it didn't look like the photo on the menu.
He
was like,
give him enough ketchup
crisp
packets.
Lettuce.
They didn't give him enough ketchup packets.
Or like Margo, they put other shit on it. Like, he lifts it up, he sees the mayonnaise or the secret sauce on the Big Mac.
The secret sauce.
No. Special sauce?
Nicole's
special.
The special sauce. That's what it is. Nicole says, watching this penultimate episode, I was reminded of the scene earlier this season when Kelly was watching an old video message from Karen, where Karen was talking about how excited she was for the baby and how she thinks Kelly's going to be a great mom. The message was likely sent shortly before her death. I think we're supposed to remember that scene as we watch Danielle send a video message to her son talking about how she can't wait to be home and be a grandma. I think it's likely that Danielle will die, but I really hope they zag here. I know sometimes storytellers resist giving their audience what they want and expect, which can mean not giving their characters what they want or expect, but I don't think it would be a bad thing to let Ed and Danny both get what they want. Ed dying in some foolhardy gambit on Mars, and Danny going home to spend the rest of her life peacefully with her family. They swerved so hard, they zagged so hard that nobody got anything the way they wanted, except for, I guess, Danny.
Yeah.
I forgot about the Karen message and how that was right before another mom died. Like, they were really laying the tracks. In fact, what are the odds that was like a very last minute decision, like Danny dying or living?
It's possible. I mean, when all you need to do is film a quick scene, you can decide that last
of
moment.
like her family celebrating, like, and her husband looking thoughtfully at a picture of Danielle on the mantle and like a tear going. Yeah, like you could have done it, and it
Either way,
would've,
it's
but
a 10-second scene, right? So
and I still think this is a fairly lethal show. They did kill Kuz this year. Other people died.
Yeah.
I won't feel any less concerned about any main characters in the future. Just not a lot of main characters I care to the level of the original cast yet. That's definitely something they have to do next year. They have to restock these shelves with good characters, and they're behind. Like they should have been doing it for a couple seasons now, and I think they've slacked off a bit.
Right, the Irish monk writes in and says, in the latest episode, the difference in the quantity of the storylines has become really obvious. Or, sorry, not quantity, quality, which has a quantity all its own.
Quality of its own.
Yeah. The difference in the quality of the storylines has become really obvious. Compare Margo's arc to the workers' strike and the contraband storylines. It made me wonder about the division of labor in the writer's room on this show and Ron Moore's role in keeping the quality consistent. I think it was on one of your shows that I heard David S. Goyer talking about the importance of this regarding Foundation. Do you think this lumpy season can be easily avoided for future seasons, or is this a typical of Moore's shows? Ho, ho, oh, I see you taking shots at Battlestar, huh? No.
First of all, everyone says that Ron Moore is not on the show anymore, like he's barely involved. Yeah, he still gives interviews. Like, have you noticed he's given like season 4 interviews and stuff? Like he's almost like still the showrunner. But I don't know if this is because I heard that last season was the first year that he completely stepped away and left things to Matt Wolpert and Ben Nadivi. And if so, I definitely think I see a slight, like I said, I think I saw a slight decrease in quality of the show last season. I think I see another decrease this season. So maybe they just don't quite have it the way he's got the ability to. And that's what's nice about it. Showrunners don't write, with rare exceptions, don't write the entire scripts and all that stuff. But what they do is they kind of like lead the writer's room. They lead to breaking down the scripts. They make sure everyone's got the eyes on everything. They're smoothing things over, and they're bringing things together. They're like the head chef of a kitchen, You got sous chefs and sauciers and all that stuff, and you're the one bringing it together and plating it and serving it to the. And I feel like that whatever the last few seasons, I feel like it's just all the ingredients aren't quite coming together. So you might be on something, Irish Monk. I don't know. I'm not plugged in enough to Hollywood to know what's going on here, but there's something going on here. I don't like it. Jerry says, I was listening to your podcast with B. Michael on the episode Brazil. There's a discussion started about some of the feedback regarding the theory that the plan is to actually crash the asteroid into Mars rather than just capture an orbit. While I totally agree this makes the most sense to secure it and prevent Earth forces from being able to slingshot it back to Earth, I wonder what Dev's true motivation is. To control the asteroid to mine its resources for the benefit of Mars, or something more. He sent Kelly to search for life in a huge crater filled with ice. This is where we suspect the asteroid to be crashed, but would it superheat the ice, vaporizing the water? Could this be the first step towards terraforming? Dev states his intentions is to never leave Mars, mining the iridium purely for financial benefit, but that doesn't seem like his actual endgame. Wouldn't the next step in colonization be to terraform? I think that's Dev's true agenda, and curious to what you think. Jim, I think you tried. I'm not sure if you actually finished. Did you? Because to me, I see so many obvious parallels to where this show is and Kim Stanley Robinson's Red, Green, Blue Mars trilogy.
Yeah, there was something about that first book that it just didn't grab me. Maybe I need to go back and try it again. But a first step to something, because I look at the idea of terraforming, and I look at the way it's been done in Star Trek, and I'm like, okay, they don't have a Genesis device. They're not gonna flip a switch and terraform this place. Terraforming is a process, and it's a long process. It's something that is never going to be complete in Dev's lifetime. But I mean, I could see him, maybe making moves to that. I think it's a little premature for that, though. I think, he just won this battle. I don't think he's thinking that far ahead, but maybe he is.
In the Red Mars book, the climax of that, one of the scientists hijacks a water ice comet and puts it into a highly oblique orbit of Mars. So
Kinda shave
every
off some of that.
week or so, it kisses the atmosphere, warms up, drops some water vapor into the atmosphere, and I think over the course of like 100 years, it displaces all of its water onto the planet, which leads to just kickstarts their terraforming operation. And I kind of thought I might even said that in the preview that's something that maybe could happen. I think that they'd be remiss if they haven't read this trilogy.
Sure.
If they haven't gone back and read Zubrin's Case for Mars, things like that. This is so funny because this is like Zubrin's nightmare scenario where it's like, oh my God, they've gone all in on the moon. They got the Battlestar Galactica approach to colonizing Mars. This is crazy. But like, it does seem like they're kind of playing jazz with it because if this was the Red Mars playbook, he would have done something terraforming with that asteroid rather than just mining it for iridium. So I do think Dev is a bit of an enigma. I think Dev is still figuring himself out. Like, he has found the way, snatching Jaws from the victory defeat, finding a way to become that great man that is still serving his own interest and his own vainglory, but also unquestionably moving human progress forward. I'm very curious to see what they do with him moving, because he's like, what do you think, his mid-40s, early 50s? He's good for another 2-3 seasons easy. And he's like the Ben Franklin of Mars. If Ed's George Washington, he's, like Ben Franklin, and what Miles is, I don't know, Thomas Jefferson. Like, these are the founding fathers of Mars. They're going to be, especially Miles and Dev, they'll be big figures in future seasons for sure.
Yeah. It seemed like, if I can look at Dev's actions and say, what is he trying to do? He's trying to continue the space race, right? He's trying to give them a reason to continue supporting Mars from Earth.
So they don't give up.
He's aligned with Margo. He's aligned with everybody who's realized, oh yeah, we actually don't have a lot of reason to be out here. And Will is faltering at this point. So give him a financial incentive.
Yeah.
All right. Giovanna writes in and says, during episode 9, when Danielle is recording the message for her family, she talks about watching all 3 Star Trek series with her grandchild. In our timeline, there's 5 live-action Star Trek series by 2003. So which Star Trek shows do you think never happened just because the Soviets landed on the moon first?
We were talked about, or like we've both kind of alluded to this. You say I've got some research on this. You said you've got some research on this. What'd you make of this conundrum?
I read some quotes from Ron Moore that I think you might have mined here too, talking about an undeveloped Star Trek show that was in the works. It was called Star Trek Phase 2. And they never ended up doing that. They ended up going with like the motion picture instead. And in Ron Moore's head, in his idea for the canon of this world, they actually never made the motion picture. Instead, they made Star Trek Phase 2. And so Star Trek the original series and Star Trek Phase 2 would be 2 of the 4 certain series. And there are a couple of other possibilities that the third one could be. I think you can say DS9 and Voyager never got made. The other 2 possibilities are they are including in that 3 the animated series, which
that's what
maybe
I'm thinking,
because that would have been out by now. Or by the time
it was almost certainly in the works in 1969, because his whole theory is the space race, continuation of space race, continued America's appetite in science fiction, and it never kind of petered out like it did in our timeline. So
you didn't have this big gap, and it wasn't as much of a risk for the other series that it could be, which is Star Trek: The Next Generation. Maybe you have that.
Yeah. I saw some person get like to Star Trek Enterprise, but it seemed like it was pretty motivated reasoning. But the fact that they just went, because like Phase 2, all the pre-production and kind of went into the motion picture. So you don't have the motion picture, you just have Phase 2, and then he said the Wrath of Khan comes out a year later, but it's essentially the same story because it's perfect.
Yeah,
So
which wouldn't have been Star Trek 2, right? It would have just been Star Trek The Wrath of Khan.
Isn't it so funny that in the better, more spacey timeline, they get less Star Trek?
Yeah, seems unfair.
Yeah. But, I mean, I guess why fantasize about it if you're living it, right? If you can actually go live on Mars, who gives a shit about Picard and the Enterprise, right?
Or here's the other option.
Yeah.
Danielle's a very specific type of Star Trek fan, and she doesn't like DS9 or Voyager or TNG. And for her, the only real Star Trek is the stuff that came out before she got on the moon or whatever.
She's a purist. Kind of the same way that the Crystal Skull is not a real Indiana Jones movie that got made.
Yep.
It's fan fiction. Never got out of the development phase. That's going to do it for our coverage of For All Mankind this season. I'm pretty sure, I'd say I'm 90% sure we'll have a wrap-up podcast next week, because I do think we're going to get a lot of discussion. A lot of people want to continue talking about this. I'm curious to see what people's reaction is, because maybe people are way higher on it than we are. Curious to see what the showrunners say. There's probably going to be a post-mortem or 3. So it'll be lots of stuff to talk about, but it's honestly whether you guys bring it or not, you know? If we get lots of feedback, if it's just me and Jim saying stuff for 5 minutes, probably not. But if we get a decent amount of feedback, we'll definitely be back next week to break it down. FAM@baldmove.com. The future is in your hands. Other than that, follow us on all social medias @baldmove, except for TikTok @baldestmove. If you want to support us, support.baldmove.com. I would encourage you to pick a social media and follow it if you're not going to support us, because there's a lot of stuff coming up this year. House of the Dragon's going to be returning. Maybe we'll get some Succession. True Detective is about to kick off. Very excited about season 4 of that. Lots of stuff. You don't want to get left behind. That's going to do it for this week. We'll see you next week, hopefully, for the season wrap up. Until then, I'm your host, A.Ron.
And I'm Jim.
Bye, Bob.